Have you ever felt tired not from the weight of the world, but from the weight of what you refuse to release? You carry people who've already let go of you, memories that sting more than they soothe, and fears that hold your spirit hostage. Life doesn't open for those who grip too tightly. It opens the moment you surrender, not because you've given up, but because you finally understand that peace lives in release. As the Buddha said, you only lose what you cling to, and it's true. Life doesn't begin when you have everything figured out. It begins when you stop resisting, when you loosen your grip, when you trust the flow instead of fighting it. In the heart of Buddhist wisdom, letting go isn't the end of something. It's the quiet beginning of everything that's real, whole, and meant for you. Today, let's take that first step together. 1. The more you cling, the more you suffer. In the quiet and timeless teachings of the Buddha, there is one truth that echoes through centuries like a sacred whisper. Attachment is the root of suffering. This teaching is not just a philosophy, it's something we experience every day, whether we realize it or not. As human beings, we are deeply emotional creatures. We form bonds, we create desires, we build expectations, and we invest ourselves in people, outcomes, and identities. But somewhere along the way, we begin to believe that our peace depends on holding tightly to these things, believing that if we let go, we'll lose everything. We cling to relationships, even when they hurt us, because we're afraid of being alone. We cling to our identities, even if they're based on past pain or false labels, because we don't know who we are without them. We cling to expectations, thinking life must go a certain way for us to feel happy or secure. But the more tightly we cling, the more we suffer. Why? Because life is always changing. People grow, things shift, situations evolve. Nothing stays the same, not your youth, not your job, not your relationships, not even your own thoughts. Trying to control something that is meant to change is like trying to hold a fistful of water. No matter how tightly you squeeze, it slips through your fingers, and the tighter you grip, the more you lose. The problem is not that life changes. The problem is that we resist those changes. We fight the natural flow. We try to freeze moments, trap people in roles, and force reality to match our desires. And when it doesn't, we feel pain, not because life is punishing us, but because we are trying to control what was never meant to be controlled. The Buddha didn't teach us to stop caring. He taught us to stop attaching. There's a deep difference. Letting go doesn't mean you don't love. It means you love without fear. It means you can care deeply, but not be destroyed if things change. It means you trust the process of life more than your fear of loss. Letting go is not giving up. It's not being cold or detached. It's the most courageous thing you can do, because it takes strength to trust life. It takes wisdom to accept that some things are temporary. It takes maturity to say, I let go of trying to control this because my peace matters more than my fear. When we stop clinging, we make room for healing. We make space for new blessings. We return to the present moment, which is the only place peace truly exists. So if you're feeling heavy, if your heart feels tight, if your soul feels tired, it may not be because something is wrong with you. It may simply be because you're holding on to something that life is gently trying to move you away from. Trust that. Don't see it as a loss. See it as liberation. Because only when your hands are empty can you receive what is truly meant for you. Only when you stop clinging can you finally begin to breathe again. Would you like me to rewrite the next lesson in the same long, immersive style? 2. Letting go creates space for what was always meant for you. Have you ever tried to walk forward while carrying a suitcase that's far too heavy? Maybe at first you manage. You grit your teeth, you push through the pain, and you keep going. But the longer you carry it, the more your shoulders ache, the more your steps slow, the more exhausted you become. Now imagine this suitcase is filled not with clothes, but with emotions. Regrets from the past, expectations that never came true, people who left but whose voices still echo in your heart, mistakes you made long ago that still whisper shame in your ears. This is what we carry through life, not in our hands, but in our minds and hearts. And then we wonder why we feel so tired, why we feel so stuck. The truth is, we keep trying to move forward, while dragging the weight of a past we were never meant to carry forever. Buddhism teaches us that letting go is not about losing, it's about making space in your heart, in your mind, in your life. Most people fear that if they let go of someone or something, their life will become empty. But emptiness is not always a bad thing. In fact, it is the sacred ground upon which something new can grow. When your hands are full of what no longer serves you, how can you receive what is meant for you? How can you embrace peace, love, or clarity when there's no room left in your heart? Letting go isn't about being careless. It's about being careful with your own soul. It's about realizing that not everything you've held on to was meant to stay with you forever. Some things were only meant to teach you, to grow you, and then be released with gratitude. So many of us hold on to people who have already let go of us. We replay conversations that will never be finished. We relive memories that only bring sorrow. We wait for closure that may never come. But what if I told you that closure isn't something someone else gives you? It's something you decide. It's the quiet moment when you say, I choose to move on, even if I never get the apology, even if I never fully understand why it ended, even if it still hurts. That moment is not weakness. It's strength. It's the kind of strength that sets your heart free from emotional captivity, because the longer you stay attached to what was, the more you delay what could be. Think about the seasons. The trees do not resist autumn. They let their leaves fall not because they've failed, but because they are making room for new growth. You are no different. Letting go is nature's way. It is how life renews itself. When you let go, you are not erasing your past, you are honoring it, while no longer allowing it to define your future. You are saying, thank you for the lesson, but I am ready for something new. It's also important to know that letting go doesn't always mean physically removing something from your life. Sometimes it means letting go emotionally, letting go of the need to be understood, letting go of the urge to prove yourself, letting go of the fantasy that things could have been different. It is an internal shift, a soft surrender that frees your spirit from the chains of what if and if only. And here's something most people forget. Life always fills the space you create. When you let go of what's not right for you, you create space for what is. When you stop holding on to someone who brings you pain, you create space for people who bring you peace. When you let go of chasing what's not meant for you, you find what has been trying to reach you all along. The soul does not thrive in chaos, it blooms in clarity. And clarity only comes when the noise is cleared, when the burdens are lifted, when the heart is quiet enough to hear what truly matters. So, if you are afraid of letting go, remember this: it is not an end in it, is an opening. It is not a loss, it is a sacred invitation. An invitation to heal, to grow, and to step into the life that's been waiting for you. You do not need to fear the space that opens when you release what no longer belongs. That space is holy. That space is where your new story begins. 3. Surrender is not weakness. It's the highest form of strength. In the world we live in today, many people are taught from a very young age that strength means never backing down, always being in control, always pushing forward, always winning the battles life throws your way. We are told that surrender is something you do when you've lost, that it's what happens when you run out of power, when you break under pressure. But that belief is a misunderstanding. It's a surface-level view of what true strength really looks like. Because in the teachings of the Buddha, surrender is not about failure, it's about clarity. It's about rising above the constant need to dominate and control, and instead, learning how to move with the flow of life, not against it. You see, most of us have been conditioned to believe that we must hold everything together all the time, that we must fix every problem, control every outcome, and predict every twist and turn of our journey. We believe that the only way to survive is to be constantly on guard, to plan, to overthink, to stay ahead of everything that could possibly go wrong. But in trying to control life, we end up exhausting ourselves. We stretch our minds to the limit. We wear down our hearts. We live with tension in our bodies and anxiety in our chests. And still, things go differently than we planned. Still, people change. Still, unexpected pain arrives. No matter how tightly we hold the reins, life refuses to be tamed. So what then? If control doesn't bring peace, what does? The answer lies in surrender. But not the surrender that comes from defeat, the surrender that comes from wisdom. It is the quiet inner knowing that says, I do not need to fight this moment. I can meet it as it is. Surrender means allowing yourself to experience what is without constantly resisting it. It means stepping away from the endless war with reality and choosing, instead, to trust its unfolding. Think of the river. It doesn't argue with the rocks in its path. It doesn't try to reroute the mountain. It simply flows around, over, or through, finding its way forward. The river is not weak, it is patient. It is wise. It knows that true power lies in flexibility, not force. And the same is true for your spirit. The more you fight life, the more exhausted you become. But when you surrender not in helplessness, but in faith, you begin to find a quiet strength rising within you. A strength that doesn't need to prove itself. A strength that trusts the rhythm of the universe. Surrender also means letting go of the illusion that we must have all the answers right now. Many people suffer not because life is difficult, but because they are constantly struggling to understand things that are not yet ready to be understood. Why did this happen? Why did that person hurt me? Why did things fall apart? Why haven't I healed yet? These are valid questions, but sometimes the answers only come in silence, in stillness, in time. And when we stop demanding immediate clarity, we open the space for peace to enter. Buddhism teaches that everything is impermanent: joy and sorrow, love and loss, beginnings and endings. When you understand this, surrender no longer feels like giving up. It feels like finally breathing. It feels like stepping off the battlefield and realizing you were never meant to fight this hard to be at peace. It feels like placing your trust in something bigger than your plans, something wiser than your fear. Letting go of control doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop forcing. It means you do your part, then release the need to manage what is beyond your reach. You plant your seeds, but you don't pull at them every day to see if they've grown. You love deeply, but you allow others to walk their own paths. You strive for your goals, but you don't destroy your peace when delays appear. You live with presence, you walk with trust, you breathe with surrender. This is not weakness. This is the strength of someone who has made peace with the truth. That life is not always about winning, but about becoming. Not always about having power, but about learning when to release it. Surrender is not the end of effort. It is the beginning of wisdom. When you surrender, you no longer react, you respond. You no longer panic, you reflect. You no longer grasp, you receive. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about surrender is this. Once you stop trying to control everything, you begin to notice that life is not against you. It never was. It was only waiting for you to let go. Waiting for you to stop wrestling with the wind and start learning how to fly with it. Waiting for you to trade the illusion of control for the reality of peace. Waiting for you to discover that surrender isn't the moment your power ends, it's the moment your true power begins. 4. Letting go is the only way to remember who you truly are. Throughout life, from the moment we are born, we are surrounded by messages telling us who we should be. Our families, our schools, our cultures, even our own fears begin to shape an identity for us. We are given names, roles, titles, responsibilities, and beliefs. We are taught how to behave, how to think, how to dress, and even what to dream of becoming. And over time, we begin to believe that this identity we've constructed that has been placed upon use is who we truly are. But something within us always feels incomplete. No matter how well we perform, how much we achieve, or how closely we follow the script life hands us, there remains a quiet discomfort, a restless feeling that whispers, "This is not all there is to you." Buddhism teaches us that our true self is not found in labels or possessions, roles or accomplishments. It is not the version of you that is praised or criticized by others. It is not the person who appears in your social media profiles or resumes, or even in the stories you tell about yourself. Beneath all of that noise, there is something eternal, something still, something untouched by praise or blame. That is your true self, not the identity shaped by fear, but the awareness that observes it all with calm clarity. However, the tragedy for most people is that they never get to meet this version of themselves, because they never learn to let go of the false self they've been holding on to. We often carry old versions of ourselves long after they've expired. We cling to past mistakes and make them our identity. We replay failures and use them to define our worth. We wear trauma like armor, believing it's what makes us strong. We define ourselves by our pain, our suffering, our limitations, and every time we say things like, "That's just how I am," or "I'll never change," we unknowingly build a prison around our spirit. But none of these things are who you are. They are only experiences that happen to you. They are events, not identities. The deeper truth is that you are not what hurt you. You are the one who witnessed the hurt, survived it, and kept going. Letting go, then, is not simply about moving on from people or situations. It is about releasing the image of who you think you're supposed to be. It is about surrendering the need to be perfect, to be approved of, to be understood. It is the gentle unwrapping of all the layers you have worn out of fear until what remains is real, raw, and free. But this process is not always easy. In fact, it can be terrifying. Because when you let go of your identity, especially one you've carried for years, you enter a space of uncertainty. You may ask, if I am not this job, not this title, not this relationship, not this role I've been playing, then who am I? That question is not a crisis, it is an awakening. It is the beginning of your return to your authentic self, the one that existed before the world told you who to be, the one that does not need validation to feel worthy, the one that is rooted in stillness and not shaken by the ever-changing winds of life. In Buddhist practice, this return to self is not a destination. It is a journey of peeling away what is false so that the truth can be seen clearly. And each time you let go of something that isn't really you, be it pride, bitterness, fear, or ego, you come closer to your center. You begin to move through the world, not from a place of pretending, but from a place of presence. Letting go also means accepting that who you are is not fixed. You are not meant to be the same person forever. Life is constantly changing, and so are you. Every experience, every joy, every heartbreak, every moment of silence is shaping you in ways you may not see right away. Holding on to an old identity, one that no longer reflects your growth, can cause deep inner conflict. You may find yourself behaving in ways that no longer feel right, staying in places that no longer inspire you, or speaking words that no longer reflect your truth. That's when it's time to let go, not because something is wrong with you, but because you've outgrown an old version of yourself. It served its purpose, and now it's time to shed it like a snake sheds its skin, not with resistance, but with grace. There is a deep peace that comes from no longer needing to perform or prove. When you realize that you don't need to be anyone else, or even the old version of yourself, you begin to breathe differently. Your shoulders relax, your mind softens, your heart opens. You stop trying to meet the world's expectations and instead begin to meet your own soul. And in this sacred space of release, you discover something priceless. You were never truly lost. You were only hidden beneath layers that were never really you. So if you feel unsure of who you are, if you've spent your life trying to be everything for everyone else, if you're exhausted by the mask you've been wearing, then maybe it's time to ask a different question. Not, who do I need to become, but what do I need to let go of so I can return to myself? You don't need to chase your true self. You only need to remove what is not you. And with every layer you release, your light shines a little brighter, not for the world's applause, but for your own freedom. Letting go is how you stop being who the world wants you to be and start becoming who you truly are. 5. The illusion of control is the root of anxiety. There's something deeply human about our desire to control. From the moment we wake up to the moment we fall asleep, we plan, we anticipate, we prepare. We try to arrange life in neat little boxes, hoping that if we just stay ahead of every possibility, nothing will surprise us, nothing will hurt us. We make to-do lists, set schedules, map out 5-year plans, and hold tight to our routines. And while a certain level of order is helpful, most of us cross a line without realizing it. We try to control what was never meant to be in our hands. And when life doesn't go according to plan, which it often doesn't, we feel the ground shake beneath our feet. That feeling of the unknown creeping in, of life slipping beyond your grip, of unexpected change arriving uninvited, that's the birthplace of anxiety. Buddhism teaches that one of the great causes of suffering is our clinging to the illusion of control. We believe that if we just do everything right, we can protect ourselves from pain. If we say the right things, people won't leave us. If we work hard enough, we won't fail. If we stay alert, we can prevent loss. But this belief creates a deep tension in the body and the mind, a constant sense that we're never doing enough, never safe enough, never quite in control. And so we become prisoners of our own expectations, exhausted by our endless efforts to hold the sky in place. The truth is, life is uncertain by nature. It's always moving, always shifting, always evolving. Nothing stays exactly the same, or our relationships, not our health, not our emotions, not our surroundings. And yet, when something starts to change, our instinct is to resist. We tighten our grip, we panic, we try to force things back into the shape they used to be. But life doesn't respond to force, it responds to flow. And the more we resist the natural movement of life, the more anxious we become. We begin to fear the very thing that life is made of, change. Consider this. Anxiety is often not caused by the events themselves, but by our resistance to them. It's not the uncertainty that destroys our peace, it's the fight against uncertainty. It's not the change that hurts, it's our refusal to accept it. When we try to control everything, we are constantly at war with reality. We spend our days imagining worst-case scenarios, reliving the past, worrying about tomorrow, all while missing the only moment that truly exists, the present. Letting go of control is one of the most liberating things a human being can do, but it's also one of the hardest. Because we confuse control with safety. We think that if we let go, we'll fall apart. But in truth, holding on too tightly is what causes us to break. It creates tension in our chest, confusion in our minds, heaviness in our hearts. We carry the weight of things we were never meant to carry, trying to control people's opinions, trying to prevent mistakes, trying to avoid discomfort. And in doing so, we trap ourselves in a mental cage made of fear. But what if we approached life differently? What if instead of trying to control every detail, we learned to trust the rhythm of life? What if we allowed uncertainty to exist without making it an enemy? What if we met change with curiosity instead of fear? Buddhism invites us to shift our perspective to replace control with awareness. Rather than trying to force outcomes, we pay attention to what's happening in the present. We listen, we observe, we respond, rather than react. This doesn't mean we stop caring or stop making plans. It means we let go of the obsession with having everything go our way. Letting go of control doesn't mean becoming passive. It means becoming wise. It means recognizing that there's a difference between what you can influence and what you cannot. You can control your actions, your words, your attitude, your effort, but you cannot control how people see you, how situations unfold, or what tomorrow brings. And when you finally surrender what's beyond your reach, you make space for peace. You begin to experience a new kind of strength, the kind that doesn't come from overpowering life, but from moving with it. The kind that stays calm in the face of uncertainty, not because it knows the outcome, but because it knows how to breathe. And here's a gentle truth. Control was never yours to begin with. The need to control is rooted in fear, but letting go is rooted in trust. When you let go, you begin to notice the small miracles around you, the way things sometimes fall into place when you stop forcing them, the way people show up when you stop chasing, the way clarity arrives when you stop trying to figure everything out. You realize that the universe has a wisdom that your plans can't always see, and in that realization, something softens inside you. The mind slows down, the breath deepens, the heart begins to rest. So if you feel anxious, overwhelmed, or afraid, take a moment to ask yourself, what am I trying to control that I was never meant to control? What can I gently release, even if just for today? What would it feel like to trust the unfolding of life, even just a little more? The path to peace is not found through grasping it, is found through surrender. And when you let go of control, not only do you lighten your load, but you also make room for life to surprise you, for beauty to enter through the spaces you no longer guard, for wisdom to grow in the silence of surrender. Let go not because you've lost, but because you are ready to win in a new way. Win your peace back. Win your stillness back. Win your joy not through control, but through trust. 6. What you let go of loses power over you. There is a quiet but powerful truth that lies at the heart of Buddhist philosophy, and it is this: the things that hurt you control you only for as long as you refuse to let them go. The moment you release them, their grip weakens and your strength returns. Most people live their entire lives carrying invisible chains made not of iron, but of memories, grudges, pain, shame, guilt, betrayal, and bitterness. These are not just emotional wounds, they are energetic weights that attach themselves to the heart, to the mind, and to the soul. The more you cling to them, the more they shape your thoughts, your moods, your decisions, and even your identity. Think about the past for a moment. Think about how many times you've replayed the same moment in your head, a conversation that ended badly, a person who disappointed you, an event that made you feel small, ashamed, or unloved. You may have lived that experience only once, but by reliving it mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, you've allowed it to live inside you hundreds, perhaps thousands of times. It becomes more than just a memory. It becomes a presence, a shadow that follows you into new relationships, new opportunities, and new chapters of your life. And the more you feed that shadow with your attention, the more power it holds over your happiness. But the truth is, the past has no real power. It cannot reach out and touch you. It cannot harm you again. What gives it power is your continued attachment to it, your refusal to release what has already happened. Letting go doesn't mean erasing the past. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means choosing to stop carrying its pain into the present. It means allowing the wound to close instead of picking at it again and again. It means saying, "This happened, and it hurt, but I will not let it define who I am anymore." Buddhism teaches us that suffering continues not because of what happened to us, but because of how we cling to what happened. Pain is inevitable, yes, but suffering is prolonged when we resist, replay, and rehearse our pain. There is a difference between feeling grief and becoming grief, between feeling anger and becoming consumed by anger, between feeling fear and living inside of fear. Emotions are natural, but they are meant to flow through us, not remain trapped within us. And the way to free ourselves is to acknowledge them fully, learn from them humbly, and then release them completely. Letting go is not something that happens all at once. It is a process. Sometimes it means crying the tears you've been holding back for years. Sometimes it means sitting quietly with a pain you've avoided and breathing through it until it softens. Sometimes it means forgiving someone who never apologized, not for them, but for your own peace. And sometimes it means forgiving yourself for mistakes you made when you didn't know better, for times you weren't strong enough to walk away, for all the moments you let fear speak louder than love. Forgiveness, in this way, becomes an act of self-liberation. It is not saying that what happened was okay. It is saying, "I choose to no longer let this hold me hostage." Many people resist letting go because they believe that if they do, they're saying the pain didn't matter. But letting go is not forgetting it, is honoring the pain by no longer allowing it to dominate your life. It's choosing to grow from it rather than shrink under it. It's looking the pain in the eye and saying, "You are part of my story, but you do not get to write my future." That is the power of release. It breaks the loop. It silences the echo. It reclaims your mind, your energy, and your freedom. Letting go also applies to fear, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. These fears, when held too tightly, become the invisible walls that limit your life. They stop you from trying, from trusting, from growing. And the more you obey them, the more control they gain. But when you face them, when you say, "I see you, but I will not bow to you," they begin to shrink. Their power dissolves not because they vanish, but because your courage outgrows them. This is how you begin to live again, not in avoidance, but in awareness. Even your thoughts, the ones that race and spiral and create imaginary disasters, can be let go. The mind loves to create stories. What if they leave? What if I fail? What if something goes wrong? But these are just thoughts, not truths. And the more you learn to observe them without clinging to them, the more peace you find. Buddhism teaches that you are not your thoughts. You are the one who watches them. You are the sky, and your thoughts are the passing clouds. When you believe every cloud, you lose sight of the sky. But when you let them float by without holding on, your inner clarity returns. And then there's comparison, the silent thief of joy. How often have you looked at someone else's life and felt like yours wasn't enough? How often have you let their success become your insecurity or their happiness become your sorrow? But when you let go of comparison, when you stop measuring your worth against someone else's story, you return to your own life, and it becomes enough. You begin to see that peace is not found by having more, but by needing less. That freedom is not found in perfection, but in presence. Letting go is not a single decision, it's a daily practice. A quiet choice to stop carrying what drains you. A sacred moment when you loosen your grip on the things that have been gripping you for years. And with every release, no matter how small, you become a little lighter. You take up space in your own life again. You begin to experience the world not through wounds, but through wonder. Not through fear, but through trust. Not through pain, but through peace. So ask yourself gently, what am I still holding on to that is holding me back? What thought, what memory, what fear, what guilt, what expectation? Can I breathe it out, even for a moment? Can I trust that what is meant for me will never be taken by letting go? Because what you let go of loses its power, and what you keep clinging to controls you. Choose release. Choose freedom. Choose to let go not someday, but now. 7. True freedom is found in inner stillness, not outer perfection. In a world that constantly pushes you to do more, be more, and achieve more, it's easy to believe that freedom lies somewhere outside of you. Maybe you think you'll feel free once you finally reach that ideal version of yourself. When your body looks a certain way, when your bank account reaches a certain number, when your home feels complete, when your partner finally understands you, when your life is neat, clean, and perfectly in order. But no matter how much you chase these outer conditions, they never seem to bring the deep peace your soul longs for. That's because true freedom, real, lasting, unshakable freedom doesn't come from the outside. It doesn't come from perfection. It comes from inner stillness. Buddhism teaches us that the mind is like a lake. When the surface is agitated, you can't see clearly. Everything is distorted, confused, turbulent. But when the water becomes still, the reflection becomes clear. In the same way, when your mind is constantly disturbed by desires, fears, comparisons, judgments, regrets, and anxieties, your inner world becomes cloudy. You react rather than respond. You live in a state of tension rather than trust. But when the mind becomes still, when you learn how to quiet the noise, you begin to see things as they really are. You begin to see yourself as you truly are, not through the lens of your ego or your pain, but through the eyes of clarity, peace, and truth. The problem is, most of us are trying to earn peace by perfecting the outside world. We rearrange our environment. We seek recognition. We chase more success, better relationships, nicer things, stronger bodies. And while none of those pursuits are wrong, they become dangerous when we tie our sense of worth and peace to them. Because the outer world is always changing. People come and go, money rises and falls, health fluctuates, relationships evolve, the weather shifts. And when your inner peace depends on something as unstable as the outside world, you become like a leaf in the wind, blown around by every gust of change. But imagine for a moment that you had a place within you that nothing could touch, a place that remained steady no matter what was happening outside, a calmness that didn't disappear when life got hard, a joy that didn't depend on applause, a love that didn't vanish with rejection. That place exists. It is your inner stillness. It is your true home. And the more you learn to rest in it, the more you realize that everything you were chasing in the world was simply a reflection of something you already had within. Stillness is not about doing nothing. It is about doing everything from a place of peace rather than a place of panic. It's when you stop living reactively, chasing one thing after another just to feel okay. It's when you begin to respond to life with wisdom instead of rushing to control it. You don't stop living. You start living more deeply. You don't stop caring. You care more clearly. And in this state of presence, you realize that freedom isn't something you finally get. It's something you remember. It was never missing. You were just too distracted to feel it. The irony is that the more you chase perfection, the more anxious you become, because perfection is a moving target. There's always someone doing better, always a new standard, always another mountain to climb. But when you let go of the need to be perfect, you begin to relax. You begin to appreciate what's already here. You begin to notice the simple joy sunlight through the window, the sound of your breath, the warmth of tea in your hands, the miracle of simply being alive. And in that noticing, you discover freedom not in having everything, but in needing less. Many people think freedom means being able to do whatever you want. But real freedom is not the ability to act on every desire. It's the ability to not be ruled by your desires. It's the quiet power of knowing that you can be still, even when the world is loud, that you can feel whole, even when something is missing, that you can choose peace, even when circumstances tempt you to be chaotic. This is the essence of Buddhist practice, see not to escape life, but to enter it fully, with awareness, with grace, with presence. And when you live this way, you are free not because life is perfect, but because your relationship with life has changed. You don't need to run away to a mountain or sit in silence for years to find stillness. You can find it right here, in the middle of your busy, ordinary life, in the pauses between your thoughts, in the breath you take before you speak, in the decision to listen instead of judge, in the moment you choose forgiveness over resentment. Stillness is found not in special places, but in your willingness to return to this moment, again and again, without running away. It is here that peace begins, not tomorrow, not when you fix yourself, but now. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about inner stillness is that it does not depend on whether your life is easy. It exists even in grief, even in struggle, even in pain. It is not the absence of emotion, it is the space in which all emotion is held with compassion. It is not detachment, it is deeper connection. A connection with your breath, a connection with your truth, a connection with something larger than your fears. That is the freedom no one can take from you. That is the stillness that holds you when everything else is falling apart. So, if you are tired of chasing perfection, if you are exhausted from trying to control the chaos, if you are longing for something real, then stop, just for a moment. Be still. Breathe. Come home to yourself. You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to be everything. You just have to be here. And in this stillness, you will find a truth that changes everything. Freedom was never outside you. It was always waiting in the quiet place within. 8. Letting go is not the end, it's the beginning of real life. For most people, the idea of letting go feels like a loss, a kind of painful giving up. When we hear those words let go, minds often translate them as defeat, as weakness, as surrendering something we should have fought harder to keep. Whether it's a relationship we once loved deeply, a dream we nurtured for years, a belief about how life should be, or even a version of ourselves we've outgrown, we cling to these things because they feel familiar, safe, known. To let them go feels like we are stepping into emptiness, into nothingness, into a space with no guarantees. And so we hold on, not because it brings peace, but because it feels less frightening than the unknown. But in Buddhism, letting go is not an ending. It is not the closing of a door behind you, it is the opening of one in front of you. When we let go, we are not collapsing, we are clearing. We are not losing, we are liberating. We are creating space for truth, for growth, for life itself to finally flow through us freely without having to push against the walls of our resistance. Letting go is not the death of life, it is the birth of a new one. A life that is not weighed down by the past, or chained by fear, or controlled by illusions. A life that is spacious, aware, open, alive. So many of us live half-lives, not because we lack opportunities, but because we're still holding on to what should have already been released. We carry bitterness from people who never said sorry. We keep dreams alive that no longer reflect who we've become. We cling to identities that were created to protect us in the past, but now only limit us. We replay old betrayals. We rehearse our pain. We walk into each day with yesterday's storm still raining in our minds. And then we wonder why joy feels distant, why peace feels temporary, why we feel so heavy inside. It's not because you're broken, it's because you're full, not full of love or light, but of what is no longer meant for you. Letting go is how you begin to empty what no longer belongs in you. It is how you finally make room for your life to begin again, not as a continuation of pain, but as a celebration of truth. Imagine your heart like a garden. If the soil is crowded with weeds, dead roots, and old rotting plants, nothing new can grow, no matter how much sunlight or water you pour into it. But when you begin to pull those weeds gently, patiently, mindfully, something miraculous happens. The soil breathes again, the space becomes fertile, and even without trying, new life begins to sprout. Letting go is not one big dramatic moment, it is a daily practice. 100 small choices. It's the decision to stop responding to messages that keep you stuck. It's the choice to release the need to be right in every conversation. It's the breath you take before reacting with anger. It's the soft whisper to yourself, I don't need to carry this anymore. Each moment of release is like peeling away a layer of armor that once protected you but now suffocates you. With every layer that falls, you become more you, not the fearful version, but the free one, not the tense one, but the true one. And yet, letting go also takes courage, because in letting go, you must face what's underneath the noise, the silence, the stillness, the emotions that you've been avoiding. Sometimes when you finally put down the burdens you've carried for years, you feel raw, exposed, vulnerable. That is okay. That is sacred. Because healing doesn't happen when you're pretending to be strong. It happens when you are honest enough to be real. When you allow yourself to feel what needs to be felt, to grieve what needs to be grieved, and to bless what needs to be released. You may feel afraid when you let go. That is natural. But you will also begin to feel light. And in that lightness, you will notice something powerful. Your spirit was never meant to be a storage room of pain. It was meant to be a living, breathing flame, a place of clarity, wisdom, and radiant peace. And when you stop blocking it with what no longer serves you, it begins to shine again. Buddhism reminds us that all things are impermanent. That includes your fears, your sadness, your confusion, your attachments. Even the things you're afraid of losing, they, too, are temporary. And when you accept that, not just intellectually, but deeply in your bones, you begin to live differently. You stop clinging, you start flowing, you stop fearing endings, you start embracing beginnings. You stop waiting for life to settle down and realize that peace begins the moment you stop trying to force anything to stay. Letting go is not passive. It is active participation in your own liberation. It is saying to the universe, I trust what is unfolding, even if I don't understand it yet. It is standing at the edge of the old and choosing not to turn back. It is walking into the unknown not because you have it all figured out, but because you're done living a life that isn't yours anymore. It is bravery. It is wisdom. It is the moment when your soul finally exhales after holding its breath for years. And one day, you'll look back not with regret, but with awe. You'll realize that everything you let go of was never meant to stay. That the peace you feel now is not because everything is perfect, but because you no longer need perfection to feel free. That your life didn't begin the day things went your way. It began the moment you released your grip and finally allowed it to unfold. So if you are holding on out of fear, out of habit, out of pain, just know this: your healing is not in holding tighter, it is in releasing with grace. And your new life, the one that fits who you are becoming, is not far away. It begins the moment you let go. 9. The moment you let go, life finally meets you where you are. There comes a time in every soul's journey where the pain of holding on becomes greater than the fear of letting go. A moment when the weight you've been carrying is no longer something you can justify. When the armor you've worn for so long begins to crack, not because you've failed, but because your spirit is growing beyond it. And it's in that sacred moment, so quiet, so personal, so deeply transformative, that life finally meets you. Not the life you planned, not the life you begged for, not the version of life that matched your dreams perfectly, but the real life, the one that was always waiting for you beneath the noise, the stories, and the struggle. Most people spend years, sometimes decades, trying to shape life into what they think it should be. We chase, we control, we grip tightly to what we've built: titles, relationships, routines, roles, even pain. We define ourselves by what we've accumulated, what we've survived, or what we've been told we are. But in doing so, we lose touch with the living, breathing reality of life itself. Because life is not something to conquer, it is something to meet. And that meeting cannot happen as long as we are hiding behind what we refuse to release. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises not from what happens to us, but from the resistance we have toward what is. That resistance builds walls between us and our emotions, between us and other people, between us and the present moment. We think these walls will protect us, but all they really do is disconnect us from our joy, from our truth, from the beauty of now. Letting go, then, is not just about removing pain, it is about removing the barriers we've built around our own aliveness. When you finally let go genuinely, not out of despair, but out of wisdom, you begin to notice things you couldn't see before. The breath becomes softer, the mind becomes quieter, the heart becomes lighter. Suddenly, what once felt urgent begins to feel unnecessary. What once triggered you begins to pass through you like wind. The people you used to try so hard to impress lose their grip on your self-worth. The regrets that haunted you begin to dissolve like smoke. And in their place grows a deeper clarity. You were never meant to fight so hard to feel peace. You were only meant to remove what blocked it. Letting go brings you into alignment, not with a perfect life, but with a true life. A life that moves with you, not against you. A life where you no longer need everything to be ideal in order to feel grounded. Where your value no longer comes from being understood, but from being whole. Where your purpose is not tied to doing more, but to being more present. And this is where life meets you, not in your plans, but in your presence. Not in your accomplishments, but in your awareness. Not in your control, but in your surrender. It's important to understand that letting go is not about apathy. It's not about giving up or turning away from what matters. It's about learning to hold life with open hands rather than clenched fists. When you stop grasping, you stop struggling. When you stop struggling, you start seeing. When you start seeing, you start understanding. And when understanding dawns, compassion follows, not only for others, but for yourself. You begin to forgive the moments you clung too long. You begin to accept the parts of you that were scared to let go. You begin to see your resistance not as failure, but as a part of your sacred unfolding. Letting go also brings you back to the truth that nothing outside of you can complete you. You stop placing your happiness in things that come and go. You stop waiting for someone to fix what only your inner stillness can heal. You stop blaming the world for your suffering and begin to realize that you have the power to respond differently. That no matter what happens outside of you, your inner freedom is untouched. You are willing to return to it. And this return, this meeting between you and life, does not need a special place or time. It can happen right now in the middle of your ordinary day, your ordinary thoughts, your ordinary breath. The power lies not in what you achieve, but in your willingness to stop fighting and start receiving. To stop trying to be somewhere else, someone else, or something else and instead say, "This is enough. I am enough. This moment is where I begin again." So many people ask, when will life finally change? When will it get better? But life doesn't change when the outside shifts. Life begins to change the moment you let go of what blocks your ability to experience it fully. The moment you let go of needing it to look a certain way. The moment you let go of forcing it to obey your expectations. That's when life opens up. That's when flow returns. That's when peace emerges, not because the world has changed, but because you have. And here's the truth. Life was never trying to hurt you. It was only trying to evolve you, to grow you beyond what you thought you needed, to strip away the illusions so your essence could finally breathe. Every disappointment was a redirection. Every ending was a beginning disguised as loss. Every unanswered question was a call to stop thinking and start listening. And every time you let go, you said yes to now. Yes to healing. Yes to truth. Yes to the quiet, unstoppable awakening of your own soul. So if you are waiting for life to begin, stop waiting. It has already begun. It is here, now, in this breath, in this letting go. And the more you release, the more you receive. The more you surrender, the more you awaken. The more you trust, the more life reveals itself not as something to chase, but as something that has always been with you, waiting for you to finally say, "I'm ready to live," not by holding on, but by letting go. 10. The real you emerges only after you let go of who you're not. There is a version of you that the world sees, the one who smiles when expected, the one who agrees to things to avoid conflict, the one who acts strong even when breaking inside, the one who wears the mask of politeness, the armor of perfection, the disguise of confidence, just to survive. Over time, this version becomes so practiced, so convincing, that even you start to believe it's who you truly are. You begin to forget what you look like without the mask. You forget how to breathe without the armor. You forget how to speak without filtering your truth through fear. And yet, somewhere deep beneath all those layers, silent, waiting, untouched, the real you still exists. Not the polished version, not the public version, but the soft, honest, wild, aware version, the one you were born as, the one life has been trying to wake you back up to. But here's the painful truth. You can't meet that real version of yourself until you let go of everything that is not you. Buddhism teaches that identity is not fixed, that the self we often cling to is not who we really are. It's a collection of thoughts, stories, conditioning, habits, and emotions. You were told who to be by your culture. You were shaped by family dynamics, by school, by media, by religion, by trauma, by pain. You were told, don't be too loud, don't cry, don't show weakness, be successful, be useful, be like them. And slowly, you built your personality around survival, not truth. Around approval, not authenticity. You forgot that the soul was never meant to fit in a box. You forgot that being real sometimes means being different, misunderstood, even alone. Letting go of who you're not means examining every part of your identity with honesty. It means asking questions that many people spend their whole lives avoiding. Is this belief truly mine, or was I taught to accept it without question? Is this relationship helping me grow? Is it just familiar? Am I pursuing this dream because it's what I want, because I was told it's what I should want? Do I speak this way because it reflects me, or because I'm afraid to be seen? These are not comfortable questions. They shake the foundation of your identity. But without asking them, you stay asleep, alive, but not awake, moving, but not present, achieving, but not fulfilled. The process of becoming who you truly are is not about adding more. It's about subtracting. It's about peeling away the false identities, outdated roles, inherited fears, and borrowed voices. It's about releasing the need to impress, to defend, to pretend. You do not become your true self by doing more. You become it by undoing what isn't real. And that is why letting go is so essential, because the version of you that is free, peaceful, and whole has been there all along, but hidden under everything you thought you had to be. This kind of letting go is not a one-time act. It is a lifelong practice. It happens in moments, in the breath you take before reacting, in the silence you allow before answering, in the courage it takes to say, I no longer want to play this role. I want to be real, even if it means being vulnerable. Sometimes it means walking away from a life that looks perfect on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. Sometimes it means stepping into stillness, away from the noise of who others want you to be. Sometimes it means doing nothing at all, just sitting with your breath and allowing the masks to melt. And when they do, something miraculous happens. You begin to hear your own voice again, not the voice that's trying to be liked, not the voice that's performing, but the quiet, intuitive, loving voice that simply speaks truth. You begin to feel your real emotions, not the ones you were taught to show, but the ones that rise when you stop censoring yourself. You begin to live not from habit, but from awareness, not from fear, but from presence. And that presence, that rooted beingness, is the foundation of all true peace. Letting go of who you're not also frees you from the prison of comparison, because when you're not pretending, you no longer need to measure yourself against others. You stop wondering if you're behind, if you're doing enough, if you're as good as them. You realize that you were never meant to be them, you were meant to be you. And your life, in all its uniqueness, in all its rawness, in all its imperfection, begins to make sense in a way it never did before. Because now you're living from the inside out, not the outside in. But be gentle with yourself. This journey is not easy. Sometimes letting go of who you're not means grieving the years you spent playing a role, grieving the connections you lose when you stop pretending, grieving the opportunities you chased that weren't truly meant for you. And yet, even in the grief, there is beauty, because every tear that falls is a tear that waters your awakening. Every release is a soft return. Every moment of truth, no matter how painful, brings you one step closer to freedom. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to become something grand. You only need to remember who you are when the noise stops, who you are when no one is watching, who you are when your heart is quiet and your breath is deep. That version of you that is the real you, that is the self beneath the self, the part of you that doesn't need approval because it is already whole. So let go not just of people or things, but of masks, roles, expectations, and false definitions. Let go of who you were never meant to be. And in doing so, let life finally show you who you've been all along. The real you does not rise through striving. The real you rises the moment you stop pretending. And that rising begins, always, with letting go. Letting go does not mean losing, it means trusting the unseen path ahead. Letting go is often misunderstood. When people hear those two words, let go, many immediately associate them with loss, with giving up something precious, with walking away from something familiar. It feels like closing a door with no idea what lies on the other side. And that thought can be terrifying, because deep down, most of us crave certainty. We want to know what will happen next. We want assurance that we'll be okay. We want a map, a guarantee, a promise that what we release will be replaced with something better. But life doesn't work that way. And spiritual growth doesn't offer certainty, offers trust. Trust not in outcomes, but in your own inner alignment, in the wisdom of the present moment, in the silent intelligence that guides all things. Buddhism teaches us that the root of our suffering is not only our attachment to people or outcomes, but also our refusal to surrender into the unknown. We hold on so tightly to what we know, even if what we know is painful, because it feels safer than what we don't. We keep ourselves in situations that deplete us, relationships that no longer nourish us, identities that no longer reflect who we are, all because we fear what might happen if we let them go. What if nothing better comes? What if I never feel this way again? What if I regret it later? These thoughts keep us stuck, not because we're weak, but because we haven't yet learned to trust the deeper unfolding of life. But what if letting go is not an act of loss, but an act of faith? Not faith in something external, but faith in your own soul. Faith that something beyond your current vision is already being prepared for you. That the space you're creating by releasing is not emptiness, but readiness. That the ending you fear is actually a clearing for something more aligned, more peaceful, more honest to arrive. What if the unknown is not darkness, but possibility? Not danger, but expansion? When you hold on to something, whether it's a relationship, a dream, a title, or even a version of yourself, you are investing your energy into the past. You are keeping your spirit anchored to what once was, rather than allowing it to grow into what can be. Imagine a bird refusing to fly because it doesn't know where the wind will take it. Imagine a flower refusing to bloom because it cannot see the sunlight yet. Letting go means accepting that you cannot see the whole path right now, but you can still take the next step. And that's all you ever need, just the next step. Letting go is also a practice in humility. It is saying, I do not know everything, I do not have all the answers, but I trust that I don't need to. It's surrendering the illusion of control and recognizing that life is wiser than our fears. Sometimes what you wanted is not what you needed. Sometimes what you begged for would have destroyed you if it stayed. Sometimes what you grieve the most is the very thing your soul was never meant to carry forever. Letting go means making peace with that truth. It means bowing your head and saying, I trust the path, even when I can't see the destination. In Buddhism, this kind of trust is not passive. It is not blind optimism. It is an awakened choice. A daily practice of meeting life as it is, not as you wish it to be. It is learning to sit in the in-between space, the space between what has ended and what has not yet begun, with grace, patience, and presence. This space can feel lonely, uncertain, even painful. But it is also sacred. It is the womb of transformation, the place where your next chapter is forming in silence. The place where you begin to hear your true voice again, not the voice shaped by fear, but the voice shaped by clarity. And here's the paradox. The more you let go, the more life begins to flow. The more you release your grip, the more you receive what is truly meant for you. The people who meet you with respect and love. The paths that match your values. The clarity that rises when the noise settles. You begin to notice that peace does not come from knowing what's next. It comes from trusting what is now. And trusting that your inner alignment will never lead you astray, even when the road twists and turns. Letting go also teaches you that you are not as fragile as you once believed, that you can face the unknown and still remain grounded, that you can feel grief and still carry light, that you can walk away from something you thought you needed and still be whole. Every time you let go, you prove to yourself that you are not defined by what you release, you are defined by what you return to, by how much more rooted, present, and open you become. This trust doesn't come all at once. It grows slowly, in the quiet moments when you breathe through discomfort instead of avoiding it, in the still moments when you allow yourself to feel without judgment, in the brave moments when you say, I don't know where this leads, but I trust the letting go. And with each step, your inner space expands, your heart softens, your fear quiets. You begin to feel not just lighter, but truer. And so, letting go is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a deeper relationship with life. A relationship built not on control, but on connection. Not on certainty, but on presence. Not on fear, but on trust. You don't have to know what comes next to take the next step. You don't have to have it all figured out to be at peace. You only have to be willing to release what no longer serves your soul and trust that the path will rise to meet you, because it always does. The heaviest weight you'll ever carry is the one you were meant to set down. There is a quiet heaviness that many people walk with every single day, that weight that isn't visible to the eye, but is felt in the shoulders, in the breath, in the silence between conversations. It's not always physical, it's emotional, mental, spiritual. A deep weariness that doesn't come from working too hard or running too fast, but from carrying things inside the heart that were never meant to be carried for so long. Old wounds, unspoken fears, guilt that was never yours to own, responsibilities you took on to keep others happy, expectations that feel like cages, grief that never found its voice, and perhaps most of all, the silent belief that you must carry it all alone because if you set it down, everything will fall apart. But Buddhism teaches us something radically different. Peace is not found by holding more, it's found by letting go. And sometimes, the most compassionate thing you can do for yourself is not to try harder or fix more or become stronger, but simply to pause, breathe, and begin to release what is too heavy to hold. Because the truth is, not every burden was meant for your back. Not every emotion is yours to keep. Not every memory must be carried forever. The soul was never designed to live under constant weight. It was designed to flow, to feel, to awaken, to return, again and again, to lightness. Think of a traveler walking a long path. At the beginning of the journey, they pack their bag full of everything they think they'll need: clothes, tools, supplies, keepsakes. But as the road continues, and the terrain becomes harder, they begin to feel the cost of every extra item. The shoulders ache, the steps slow, the joy fades. And eventually, they come to a moment of truth. If they want to continue, something must be released. Not because they're weak, but because wisdom has arrived. Letting go becomes not a sign of defeat, but a sign of maturity. You are that traveler. And you are allowed to put things down. You are allowed to release the pain you replay in your mind, the stories that say, you're not enough, the pressure to please everyone, the belief that your worth is tied to how productive you are, the shame that came from someone else's judgment. You are allowed to say, this is too heavy, and I choose to set it down. You are not betraying your past by letting go of its burden. You are honoring your growth by recognizing that you no longer need to carry it. Letting go of heavy emotions doesn't mean denying them. It means facing them with compassion and then allowing them to pass. You can acknowledge the hurt and still choose not to hold it. You can feel the grief and still breathe through it. You can remember what happened without letting it define who you are now. The human heart is not a container. It is a current. And when we block that current by storing everything inside, we stop the flow of life itself. The way forward is not by suppressing it, is by allowing, releasing, and trusting. And sometimes the heaviest burden we carry is the role we've played for too long. The strong one, the helper, the achiever, the fixer, the one who never complains. These roles become armor. And though they may have served us once, they eventually begin to suffocate us. Letting go of these roles doesn't mean you stop being kind or capable. It means you allow yourself to be human, to rest, to receive. To not have all the answers. It means saying, I don't need to carry everything for everyone. I am allowed to care for myself too. In Buddhist practice, there is a profound reverence for simplicity, not just in the way we live outwardly, but in the way we live inwardly. A cluttered mind is like a crowded room. There's no space to breathe, to think, to be. But when we begin to let go of the unnecessary, when we release what no longer supports our well-being, we make space for presence, for clarity, for joy to return, not because we forced it, but because we cleared the space where it had been waiting to land. Letting go of heavy mental habits, overthinking, self-doubt, catastrophizing requires awareness. The mind will often pull you back into familiar loops. It will say, you must worry or things will go wrong. You must think it through 1,000 times to be safe. But these patterns only deepen the exhaustion. The practice then becomes learning to notice the thought, honor it, and gently let it pass. Just as clouds move across the sky, so too can we let our thoughts come and go without grabbing onto them. This is not laziness. This is freedom. And perhaps the heaviest burden of all is the belief that you must be perfect, that you must heal completely to be worthy, that you must arrive somewhere before you can rest. But Buddhism reminds us that there is no final destination, only this step, this breath, this moment. You don't have to be healed to be at peace. You don't have to be enlightened to be kind to yourself. You don't have to carry everything just to prove you're strong. The deepest strength is in your willingness to let go. Letting go is an act of self-trust. It says, I believe in the intelligence of life. I believe that what is meant for me will not pass me by. I believe that I don't need to suffer to be worthy. I believe that setting this down does not make me weaker. It makes me clearer, lighter, and more open to love. So take a breath now and ask yourself gently, what have I been carrying for far too long? What fear, what role, what memory, what pressure? Can I loosen my grip, even just a little? Can I allow myself to be held by the present moment, instead of always holding everything myself? Life does not demand that you carry it all. Life only asks that you be present for what is real. And what is real, more often than not, is far lighter than what you fear. The real journey begins not when you take on more, but when you begin to release, to trust, to breathe, and to walk forward not as a burdened soul, but as a free one. Because the heaviest weight you'll ever carry is the one you were always meant to set down. Letting go isn't about moving on, it's about coming back to yourself. When people talk about letting go, they often speak of it like it's a final act. Like you let go, and then you move on, forget, erase, or walk away without ever looking back. They make it sound like a doorway that closes forever, never to be opened again. But if you listen more deeply beyond the surface noise of what society tells you, you'll find that true letting go is not about moving on from something, it's about returning to something else. Something that never left you, but may have been buried beneath all that clinging. That something is you. Letting go isn't about pretending it never mattered. It's about releasing the hold that pain has over your identity. It's not about forgetting someone or something, it's about no longer allowing that memory to dictate your present. It's about reclaiming the energy you've poured into the past and bringing it back home to your heart. Because every time you hold on to what's already gone, you distance yourself from the only place life ever truly exists, this moment. In Buddhism, the practice of mindfulness teaches us how to return to the now. Because the mind is a wanderer. It travels backward to replay what could have been. It leaps forward to worry about what might happen. It runs in circles, trying to make sense of things that have already passed or things that haven't even arrived. And in this endless motion, we get lost. We forget the simplicity of our breath. We forget the peace that lives in stillness. We forget that what we're truly seeking is not moving on to some better place, but coming back to the only home that ever really belonged to us, the quiet center within. Letting go, then, is a sacred return, a homecoming, not to a place, not to a person, but to yourself, your truth, your calm, your unshakable awareness, the self that is not defined by what happened, or who left, or how things unfolded, the self that was there before the heartbreak, before the loss, before the story. It is the self that remains after everything else has fallen away. And the deeper you go into that space, the more you realize you were never broken. You were only layered in grief. You were only carrying weight that was never yours to begin with. But to return to yourself, you must be willing to stop running. You must be willing to sit with what is real, to feel what you've been avoiding, to grieve, to tremble, to open the door to sorrow, and let it speak not forever, but just long enough to be heard, honored, and released. Because letting go does not mean avoiding. It means processing. And true healing comes not from forgetting, but from facing, forgiving, and freeing. Sometimes the hardest thing to let go of is not another person but the version of yourself you became in their presence, the version who was quieter to keep peace, who worked harder to feel worthy, who made themselves smaller just to be accepted. And when you let go, what you're really saying is, I no longer need to shrink to be loved. I no longer need to abandon myself to belong. I return to myself, not the person who begged for love, but the one who knows they are love already. This return also means letting go of who you thought you had to be, the overachiever, the peacemaker, the one who always smiles, the one who carries everyone's burdens. These identities may have helped you survive, but they are not who you are. You are allowed to outgrow your coping mechanisms. You are allowed to evolve beyond your survival masks. Letting go is your permission slip to shed those layers, not because you failed, but because you are finally safe enough to be real. And, as you come back to yourself, you'll notice something gentle but profound. The world no longer controls your emotions the way it once did. You'll hear the same criticism, and it won't pierce your heart. You'll face the same uncertainty, but it won't shake your roots. You'll witness the chaos, but something inside you will remain calm, because you are no longer searching for validation outside. You have returned to the sanctuary within. This inner home is not grand. It doesn't shout or sparkle or demand attention. It's soft, still, deep like a quiet forest or the early morning sky. And in that stillness, you rediscover your power, not the power of status or control, but the power of presence, the power of peace, the power that says, I do not need to chase anything to feel whole. I only need to stop running from myself. Letting go doesn't erase the past. It just loosens its grip on your soul. It teaches you to bow to what was, without becoming imprisoned by it. It gives you back your freedom to feel joy, to breathe deeply, to create again, to trust again. And maybe most beautifully, it gives you the courage to sit with life exactly as it is, without needing it to be something else. So if you've been trying to move on, pause, breathe, ask yourself not, how do I forget? But, what do I need to remember? What part of me has been waiting to return? What light within me has been covered in dust? What softness have I abandoned in the name of being strong? The answer is not in the next chapter. It's in the gentle act of turning inward, of unburdening your heart, of saying, I release this not because it didn't matter, but because I finally matter enough to stop carrying it. Letting go is not moving away from what hurt you. It is coming home to what heals you. And in that sacred return, you find yourself again. Letting go is not isolation. It's the gateway to true connection. There is a quiet fear that lives in the heart of almost every person when they think about letting go. It's not just the fear of change or uncertainty, it's the fear of ending up alone. The fear that if you release what no longer serves you, be it a relationship, a role, an identity, a belief, you might lose your place in the world. That the silence after the release might echo too loud. That you'll be left behind while everyone else keeps moving. And so, despite knowing deep inside that something needs to be released, we hold on, not out of love or truth, but out of fear. A fear that whispers, if you let go, no one will come with you. But in Buddhism, letting go is not a movement away from others, it's a movement into your truest self. And from that place, you begin to connect in a way that's deeper, clearer, more real. The misunderstanding comes when we think that the people, roles, or beliefs we release are what define our sense of belonging. But the opposite is true. As long as you are connected to others through a version of yourself that is not authentic, through people-pleasing, through guilt, through unspoken resentment, you are not truly connected. You are entangled. You are performing closeness while your spirit remains unseen. Letting go is the courageous act of saying, I am willing to be with myself long enough to know who I truly am, so that when I connect with others, it is no longer from fear, but from truth. It's not a wall. It's not a withdrawal. It is a return to inner alignment, so that everything you offer the world from that point forward is clean, honest, and clear. When you let go of what no longer fits, you may lose some people, you may lose comfort. You may even lose the image others had of you. But what you gain is a deeper, richer kind of belonging, the kind that does not depend on being understood, but on being whole. This kind of letting go might feel lonely at first, because you are no longer seeking connection through performance. You're no longer showing up just to be accepted. You're no longer shrinking or stretching just to keep peace. You stop engaging in relationships that survive only through your silence. And in the space that opens, you may find yourself alone. But this aloneness is not emptiness. It is clarity. It is purification. It is the soil where genuine connection can grow, free from distortion. There's a deep teaching in Buddhism that says, when you sit alone, you are not lonely, you are with the entire universe. And while that may sound poetic, it holds profound truth. Because when you are no longer caught in the noise of needing others to complete you, you begin to hear the quiet harmony of your own being. You begin to feel rooted, even when standing alone. You begin to experience solitude not as punishment, but as peace. And from that peace, you open the door to a different kind of relationship, not one that fills a void, but one that mirrors your wholeness. Letting go also allows you to relate to others without carrying your wounds into every interaction. When you release the anger from your past, you stop projecting it onto innocent people in the present. When you release the belief that you are unworthy, you stop needing constant validation. When you let go of the idea that others must behave a certain way for you to be at peace, you stop trying to control them, and in that release, you discover love that is not suffocated by fear. The truth is, the relationships that are meant for you will not require you to carry the weight of who you're not. They will not demand you betray yourself. They will not crumble when you speak your truth. They will not disappear when you begin to heal. In fact, when you let go of all that is false, you create space for these kinds of connections to find you. But as long as you cling to the old out of fear, the new cannot enter. It's not that you're being punished, it's simply that your hands are too full to receive. Letting go is also the release of roles you never asked for. Perhaps you were made the caretaker in your family, the fixer in your friendships, the strong one in every group. You wore these roles because they were expected of you, but deep inside you grew tired. You longed for someone to ask how you're really doing. You longed to rest without guilt. You long to be held, instead of always doing the holding. When you let go of these roles not by abandoning people, but by honoring your own needs, you begin to invite mutual care, mutual presence, mutual love. Relationships stop being one-sided. They become sacred exchanges, not silent transactions. There's also another kind of connection that letting go opens the connection to life itself. When you release your grip on how things should be, you begin to notice the beauty of how they already are. You stop missing your life while chasing someone else's. You begin to feel the breeze more deeply, taste your food more fully, look into someone's eyes without rushing to respond. You begin to experience your life not as a checklist, but as a living moment. This is true connection. This is intimacy not just with people, but with reality itself. And from this place of presence, you become a magnet not for attention, but for alignment. The more you return to your center, the more life brings you people, paths, and purposes that match your vibration, not because you chased them, but because you made space for them. Letting go, then, becomes the great invitation. You are no longer begging to be loved. You are becoming love itself. You are no longer seeking approval. You are standing in your truth. You are no longer pretending. You are simply being, and in that being, the right people recognize you not because you reached out, but because you finally reached in. So no, letting go is not isolation. It is integration. It is the sacred act of peeling away the layers that never belong to you, so that the connections that do belong to you can finally find you. It is a declaration that says, I am no longer willing to trade authenticity for attachment. It is the choice to build relationships on truth, not performance, on presence, not pressure, on mutual freedom, not silent suffering. And when you do this, you may lose a few things, but what you gain will feel like home. Letting go is the doorway through which all healing begins. Healing is a word we often hear, a goal we all seem to chase, a promise whispered by books, teachers, and moments of inspiration. But what few people speak honestly about is this. Healing does not begin the moment you try harder to feel better. It doesn't begin when you distract yourself, when you cover the wound with positive thoughts, or when you bury it under more responsibilities. Healing doesn't happen simply because time has passed. Time doesn't heal all wounds, but letting go does. Letting go is not just part of healing. It is the doorway, the threshold, the very path you must walk if you truly want to be free from the pain that lives within you. In Buddhism, suffering is not denied, it is understood, and through that understanding, it is transformed. Every wound you carry is not just a memory of pain. It is an imprinter message, a vibration, a story that the body, the mind, and the heart have held onto tightly. When left unexamined, these wounds do not fade. They fester. They become tension in the shoulders. They become anxiety in the breath. They become anger in the words you speak, even when you don't mean to. They become patterns that repeat themselves again and again in your relationships, your choices, your silences. Letting go is the act of breaking those patterns not by force, but by deep awareness. It's the moment you sit with your pain not to fight it, but to feel it, not to rush past it, but to honor it. Because before you can let something go, you must first be willing to look at it. You must acknowledge the part of you that is still bleeding, still grieving, still confused, still longing for something that never arrived. You must meet your own pain with the kind of presence you may have waited for others to give you, but now choose to offer yourself. And this kind of letting go is not sudden. It doesn't happen all at once. Sometimes it begins in the smallest ways, in the breath you take when your chest tightens, in the pause before reacting to an old trigger, in the way you choose silence instead of arguing, in the decision to walk away from something that once comforted you but now holds you back. These are not loud moments. They do not make headlines. But each one is a sacred turning point, a quiet revolution within the soul, a shift from attachment to clarity. Letting go also means releasing the need for answers, for closure, for justice, for apologies that may never come, for explanations that will never satisfy. Many people stay stuck in pain because they believe they can't heal until the story makes sense, until the other person understands, until things are made fair. But healing is not about what happens out there. It's about what you allow to happen inside. It's the moment you say, I don't need this pain to be validated. I am choosing to free myself anyway. You let go not because what happened was okay, but because carrying it is costing you too much life. The most profound letting go is often the invisible kind, the kind no one else can see. The moment you stop obsessing over someone's silence, the moment you stop revisiting the same memory like a loop, the moment you stop blaming yourself for how things turned out, the moment you stop needing to prove your worth. And in these quiet releases, healing doesn't shout, but it begins. It begins with every drop of pressure you remove from your own heart, with every expectation you dismantle, with every story you rewrite from pain into peace. Letting go is also about making space for love, for joy, for truth to return. Because healing isn't just the absence of pain, it's the presence of something new, something softer, something truer. But that newness cannot enter until the old has been released. You must clear the soil before the seed can grow. You must open the window before the fresh air can enter. You must exhale before the next breath can be drawn. This is why many people don't feel the healing happening, because it doesn't always feel like light. Sometimes it feels like loss, like confusion, like standing in the ruins of what you once built, like holding your own shattered pieces without knowing how to put them back together. But what you don't always realize is that letting go of what is false is what makes space for what is real. You are not breaking. You are clearing. You are not collapsing. You are emptying. And in the stillness that follows, healing doesn't arrive from the outside, it rises from within. In Buddhist practice, we do not chase healing. We create the conditions for it to arise naturally. We sit, we breathe, we observe, we listen. And through this gentle presence, we learn that healing is not something you force. It is something you allow. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is a soft whisper saying, "You are safe now. You can put this down. You no longer need to carry this pain to remember what you've learned." And so, letting go becomes a kind of sacred trust. A trust that you are not defined by what hurt you. A trust that your worth is not based on your scars. A trust that life is not punishing you, but inviting you to become whole again. You are not erasing the past, you are integrating it. You are not discarding your story, you are rewriting the ending. You are not closing your heart, you are healing it so it can open more fully than ever before. Letting go is not easy. It will ask everything of you. It will take your illusions and your false strength. It will test your patience and your willingness to feel. But in return, it gives you back your peace, your clarity, your joy. It gives you back your power to choose not from fear, but from freedom. And when you look back, you'll realize something sacred. Healing didn't come when you escaped the pain. It came when you stopped running, turned around and walked through it with grace. So take a deep breath. You don't need to carry it all anymore. You've suffered long enough. You've fought long enough. You've waited long enough. The healing is not somewhere far away. It is here. Now, in this breath, in this letting go. Because when you finally let go, the wound stops speaking in pain and begins to whisper in peace. You made it, and now you are free. Letting go is remembering that you were never meant to force life to work. We live in a world that constantly tells us to fight harder, push more, hustle longer. We're taught that if something isn't working, it's because we haven't tried hard enough yet. So we keep forcing doors that were never meant to open. We keep chasing people who've already turned away. We keep fixing what keeps breaking. We tighten our grip, believing that control equals safety, and that our strength lies in how much pressure we can apply to make things work the way we imagined. But in the teachings of Buddhism, this relentless grasping is not strength. It is suffering disguised as effort. And the moment we begin to understand this, a new truth begins to shine quietly in the background of our lives. Letting go is not giving up, it is remembering that you were never meant to force life to work. So many people are exhausted not because life is too hard, but because they are pushing against the natural rhythm of things. They are resisting the flow. They are demanding clarity where there is only mystery, closure where there is only silence, permanence where there is only change. And in doing so, they trap themselves in a cycle of frustration, stress, and spiritual fatigue. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises not from what happens, but from our refusal to let it be. The tree does not resist the wind. The river does not resist the rocks. They bend, flow, adapt, and continue. But we, in our need for control, try to force life into shapes that it was never meant to hold. Letting go is the art of softening your hands, of loosening your expectations, of breathing into what is, especially when it isn't what you wanted. It's the wisdom to know that effort has its place, but so does surrender. It's realizing that not everything is yours to fix. Not every relationship is yours to save. Not every answer is meant to arrive right now. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop pushing, stop chasing, stop trying to make sense of every broken piece, and instead, just sit, breathe, trust, wait, listen. Letting go means allowing life to unfold at its own pace. Not because you're passive, but because you're wise enough to know that timing is sacred. That what's meant for you will not require you to exhaust yourself, betray yourself, or abandon your inner peace to attain it. If it drains you endlessly, if it confuses you constantly, if it forces you to become someone else just to hold it together, it may not be meant for you. Or at least, not right now. It takes deep courage to stop fighting, because we've been told all our lives that surrender means failure. But in the spiritual path, surrender is strength. It is maturity. It is trust in something greater than the limited mind. It is saying, I've done all I can with love and intention, and now I release the outcome to the wisdom of life itself. And in that release, a strange thing happens. Peace returns. The breath deepens. The mind softens. The body begins to rest. Because the tension was never in the situation itself, it was in our resistance to what it was becoming. This is not to say you shouldn't try. The Buddha did not teach passivity. He taught right effort rooted in mindfulness, not ego. You are meant to work with life, not against it. You are meant to water what grows, prune what withers, and most importantly, know when to step back and let the garden take care of itself. Forcing things to work when their time is over is like holding on to a flower that's already wilted. You can clutch it tighter, but you can't bring it back to bloom. Life is the same. It moves in seasons. It opens and closes in its own time, and your peace comes not from dragging one season into the next, but from honoring the flow. Sometimes letting go means accepting that something once beautiful no longer fits the person you are becoming. Sometimes it means allowing a dream to dissolve so a deeper truth can rise. Sometimes it means walking away from what you thought was forever and choosing the path that is unknown but honest. And sometimes it simply means pausing, breathing, and releasing the belief that it is your job to hold the whole world together. Letting go invites a kind of humility. It asks you to bow to life, to say, I trust you even when I do not understand you. It asks you to sit in uncertainty without panic, to grieve what's leaving without resentment, to wait for clarity without rushing, and this space of allowing not forcing is where the deepest healing happens. Where you realize that life doesn't need your struggle to work. It needs your presence, your faith, your surrender. And when you begin to live this way, things begin to shift, not always outside, but deeply within. You stop measuring your worth by outcomes. You stop feeling like a failure every time something ends. You stop needing constant signs and guarantees. Instead, you begin to trust the quiet rhythm of the now. You begin to walk lightly. You begin to rest more often in the arms of what is, rather than wrestling with what should be. Letting go also brings you back to your true self, the one that was buried under all the striving, the self that doesn't need to be proven, fixed, or improved constantly. The self that is enough, even when nothing is working outwardly. The self that says, I do not need to force life to love me, I am already worthy. And from this inner stillness, your choices become clearer, your boundaries become kinder, your relationships become freer, because you are no longer acting out of fear, you are living from truth. So if you are tired of fighting what keeps slipping away, tired of holding what no longer lifts you, tired of being someone you're not, just to keep something from breaking, this is your moment. The invitation is here, to breathe, to soften, to let go, not because you've failed, but because you are finally wise enough to stop forcing what life is asking you to release. Letting go does not mean losing the battle. It means understanding that there was no battle to begin with. Only lessons. Only seasons. Only growth. And know it's time to grow lighter. Letting go is how you make peace with what you'll never understand. There are questions that live inside the heart, like echoes that never find rest. Why did they leave? Why did it end? Why did this happen to me? Why didn't they stay? Why did life unfold this way? These are not shallow questions. They are deep soul-axe unanswered prayers, moments that never made sense, pain that seems to have arrived without a reason, and losses that feel far too cruel to be part of anything meaningful. And so, we keep circling those questions. We keep returning to the moment it all changed. We try to dissect the past like a puzzle that, if solved, might finally give us relief. But what Buddhism gently teaches us is this. Peace is not found in answers, it is found in acceptance. And acceptance begins the moment you let go of needing to understand everything. The human mind is a storyteller. It wants closure, explanation, certainty. When something painful happens, the mind goes to work trying to figure it out. We rewind memories, read between the lines, analyze every detail, search for signs, connect imaginary dots. We think that if we can just understand what happened, then maybe we can stop hurting. Maybe we'll find the meaning. Maybe we'll finally feel free. But not all things in life come with explanations. Some endings will never make sense. Some people will never give you closure. Some chapters will remain incomplete, not because they are broken, but because they were never meant to be finished in the way your heart imagined. Letting go in this way is not easy. It feels like surrendering your last thread of control, like saying goodbye to the hope that one day it will all become clear. But it is also the most powerful and liberating form of surrender, because in releasing the need to understand, you stop resisting reality. You stop bleeding energy into a past that cannot be changed. You stop holding your healing hostage to explanations that may never come, and instead, you begin to step back into your own life, not with full understanding but with full presence. This is not passive resignation, this is active trust. Trust that there is a deeper intelligence behind the unfolding of your life. Trust that you can live a full, peaceful life even with unanswered questions. Trust that your heart can hold sorrow without needing to justify it. Trust that healing does not come from answers, but from the gentle decision to stop needing them. Letting go, in this way, is an invitation to bow to the mystery, not to understand it, but to befriend it, to soften into the unknown, to live the question rather than obsess over the answer. There are losses you will carry for a lifetime, Eno, because you are broken, but because they shaped you. They carved your compassion, deepened your awareness, opened your eyes. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It does not mean pretending it didn't matter. It means you are choosing to stop replaying what can't be rewritten. It means allowing grief to rise and fall like a tide, without needing to explain it away. It means giving yourself permission to stop investigating your pain like a crime scene, and instead allowing it to dissolve in the warmth of your own presence. Sometimes the question is not, "Why did this happen?" but, "Can I love myself through it anyway? Can I walk through the ashes without needing to understand the fire? Can I sit in the quiet and say, 'I don't know why it ended this way. I don't know why it had to hurt. But I trust that my healing is not on hold because I don't have all the answers.'" This is not weakness. This is wisdom. This is how a soul grows beyond the mind. Letting go of the need to understand also means releasing the urge to blame. We blame others. We blame ourselves. We blame timing, fate, God. But blame is a heavy anchor. It may feel righteous in the moment, but over time, it chains you to pain. It keeps you looking backward. It fuels resentment, which burns away your inner peace. And so, when you let go, you are not saying, "What happened was right." You are saying, "I refuse to let it define who I am." You are choosing peace over punishment, growth over bitterness, presence over paralysis. In Buddhism, there is a reverence for mystery, a knowing that some things are beyond the grasp of logic, that life is not a neat equation. It is a living, breathing unfolding of causes and conditions, of karma and impermanence, of moments meeting each other in ways we will never fully see. And in this understanding, we stop needing everything to be explained. We begin to live more from the heart, less from the head. We begin to walk through life, not as investigators, but as pilgrims. Not as victims of what we cannot know, but as lovers of what is still here. This shift is where healing truly begins. Not when you figure it out, but when you give yourself permission to stop needing to. When you let go of the obsession with closure and choose instead to open. When you release the grip on why and return to how. How do I breathe through this? How do I care for myself now? How do I love more deeply, not less, because of what I've endured? The peace you are seeking is not waiting at the end of a perfect explanation. It is already here, right now, underneath the weight of your questioning. It is the calm that rises when you say, "I will not waste another day searching for what may never come. I choose instead to live, fully, gently, freely." Letting go is not forgetting. It is not approval. It is not weakness. It is remembering that peace was never found in the answer. Peace was always waiting in your willingness to stop needing one. Letting go is the most loving thing you'll ever do for yourself and for the world. There comes a moment on the spiritual path, not with fireworks or grand declarations, but with quiet awareness, when you realize that much of the suffering in your life has not come from what happened to you, but from how tightly you've held on to it. The story you told yourself, the replaying of old wounds, the attachments you built around pain and identity, the expectations you carried on your shoulders for years. And in that moment, something begins to shift, not because you have all the answers, not because life has suddenly become easy, but because you see clearly that peace has never been about controlling life. It has always been about releasing your grip. And so begins the soft and sacred practice of letting go, not as an act of defeat, but as an act of profound love. Letting go is not just something we do for closure or healing or peace. It is something we do out of compassion, first for ourselves and then for others. Because when we refuse to let go of resentment, of control, of disappointment, of old identities, we don't just harm our present moment. We shrink the heart. We cloud the mind. We become reactive, brittle, easily wounded. We begin to carry the past into every interaction, every decision, every breath. But when we begin to let go, not all at once, but slowly, gently, layer by layer, we begin to soften. We begin to open. We begin to return to the part of ourselves that is not burdened by fear, but rooted in presence. And from that place, our love becomes clearer, our kindness becomes lighter, our being becomes more available to the beauty of now. Buddhism teaches that the ultimate goal is liberation, not from life, but from the illusions that keep us from fully living it. And the most powerful illusion we carry is that we must always hold on. Hold on to relationships to prove we're lovable. Hold on to pain to prove we've been wronged. Hold on to expectations to prove we're worthy. But when you let go, you begin to realize something sacred. You do not need to hold anything tightly to be complete. You do not need to grasp to be safe. You do not need to prove to be loved. You are enough as you are, free, breathing, aware. And when you let go not just of things, but of how you think things should be, you begin to treat yourself with gentleness. You no longer demand perfection from yourself. You no longer punish yourself for not knowing better in the past. You no longer compare your journey to someone else's timeline. You begin to meet yourself like an old friend, long unseen. You begin to speak to yourself not with harshness, but with tenderness. You begin to forgive not just others, but yourself. For the moments you clung too long, for the times you stayed too silent, for the mistakes you made when you were hurting. This is the power of letting go. It clears the space for love to return. Not just romantic love, not just external love, but the quiet, steady love of life itself. You begin to feel it again in the smallest things, the sound of the breeze, the warmth of the sun on your skin, the softness in someone's eyes when they listen without judgment. You begin to appreciate not because everything is perfect, but because you no longer need perfection to feel grateful. You've let go of the illusion that life owes you certainty, and in doing so, you've opened the door to wonder. Letting go is also how we love the world, because when you let go of the need to control people, you stop trying to fix them. You stop placing conditions on their healing. You begin to love them as they are, not as who you want them to be. You begin to listen more, judge less, expect less. You give space. You trust their timing. You honor their freedom. And in doing so, you offer something rare in this world: presence without pressure, love without grasping, connection without control. So many of our relationships suffer because of our attachments. Our attachment to being right, to being needed, to being validated. But when we let go of those attachments, we begin to relate from a deeper place. A place that says, I love you even when I don't understand you. I love you even if you walk away. I love you not because you complete me, but because I've found completeness within myself, and I have something real to offer. This is not weakness. This is the most powerful kind of love, the kind that sets both people free. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning care. It means releasing control. It means saying, I no longer need to grip life with both hands. I trust that what is meant for me will stay. I trust that what leaves is not punishment, it is alignment. I trust that my worth is not in what I hold, but in who I am. And this kind of trust transforms everything. It turns suffering into stillness. It turns heartbreak into a doorway. It turns the past into wisdom. And most of all, it turns the present into home. This is the heart of the Buddhist path. Not to escape life, but to see it clearly, to see that nothing lasts, and that this is not tragedy but liberation, that what you love may change, may leave, may die, but that love itself can continue if you do not try to trap it. That peace is not found in possession, but in presence. That healing is not found in holding tighter, but in releasing with grace. So if your heart is heavy today, if your mind is tired from trying, if your spirit is weary from holding it all together, just pause, breathe, and ask gently, what am I holding that I can begin to set down? What belief, what burden, what memory, what need? Can I trust that letting go is not abandonment, but an invitation to come home, to return to peace, to allow love to flow again? Because letting go is not a loss. It is how you return to the truth. And the truth is, you were always free. Letting go is the final act of faith that you were always meant to be free. There comes a time when holding on no longer feels like strength, it begins to feel like suffering. What once gave you comfort now weighs on your chest. What once felt familiar now feels suffocating. What once brought connection now only brings distance. You wake up with the same thoughts looping endlessly in your mind. You walk through your days like a shadow of the person you used to be. You pretend to be fine, while something deep within you quietly whispers, this is not your path anymore. But even then, letting go feels impossible, because it means leaving behind the identity you've worn for so long, stepping into a space where the outcome is unknown. It feels like death. But in truth, letting go is not the end, it is the final act of faith that you were always meant to be free. We hold on for so many reasons. We hold on because we're afraid of change, because we're afraid of being alone, because we believe that if we let go, we'll lose everything we've worked for. We fear the silence that follows release. We fear the version of ourselves we might meet when we no longer have the distraction of the things we cling to. And so, we grip tightly to toxic relationships, to painful memories, to expectations that never materialized. We try to force happiness in places where our hearts no longer live. We try to repair what life has already asked us to release. But slowly, that grip becomes a prison. We don't realize it until we're worn down, hollowed out, exhausted not from life but from resisting it. Buddhism teaches that the root of all suffering is attachment, and the deepest attachment of all is not to people, possessions, or outcome, as it is to the illusion that our peace depends on anything outside of us. The illusion that something must be fixed, earned, achieved, or proven before we are allowed to rest. But peace does not wait at the finish line. It waits in the space you clear when you let go, not reluctantly, not bitterly, but as an act of sacred trust that you do not need to hold the world together to be held, that you do not need to understand everything to be free, that you do not need to know where you're going to begin walking. Letting go is how you remember your original nature, open, fluid, spacious, light, before the pain, before the fear, before the noise. Underneath all the striving and pleasing and proving is a soul that was never meant to cling, a soul that was never meant to be buried beneath weight it didn't create. A soul that was born not to perform, but to experience, not to carry, but to flow. Letting go is how you return to that soul, how you peel away the layers of who you became in your fight to survive, and finally breathe as who you were always meant to be. This process doesn't happen all at once. It happens in soft moments, in the decision not to reply to an old argument, in the breath you take instead of reacting to a trigger, in the silence you keep instead of explaining your worth. in the boundaries you set not out of anger, but out of love. In the way you say to yourself, I don't need to keep hurting to feel loyal. I don't need to carry this just because I carried it yesterday. I am allowed to begin again. Letting go doesn't always mean walking away. Sometimes it means staying, but with a new perspective, a lighter grip, a softer heart. It means you no longer live in resistance. You no longer demand life follow your script. You begin to let others be who they are, even if they never become who you hoped they'd be. You begin to let your life evolve, even if it doesn't look like the plan you once clung to. And in doing so, you begin to evolve, to not as someone better, but as someone freer. There will be grief in the letting go. That is inevitable. You are not just releasing a person or a dream or a belief. You are releasing the version of yourself who built her world around it. There will be mourning, there will be fear, but there will also be space. And in that space, something ancient and sacred begins to rise, a deeper knowing, a quieter strength. A peace that no longer depends on the external, but blooms gently within. And you will realize something you had forgotten, that you do not need to be afraid of the emptiness. The emptiness is where your truth begins. This is the final act of letting go, not with resistance, but with reverence. You are not abandoning your story. You are honoring it by no longer reliving its pain. You are not giving up on life. You are saying yes to the life that exists beyond the struggle. You are not walking away from love. You are releasing what was never love in the first place, or what love once was but can no longer be. You are not letting go to be alone. You are letting go so you can finally belong to yourself, to the present, to the rhythm of life that has always been guiding you home. And so, the moment you finally open your hands, release your grip, and allow the weight to fall, the world does not collapse. Something beautiful happens. You realize it was never your job to carry it all. You realize that life continues, not because you force it, but because it flows through you. You realize that your healing was never waiting at the end of more effort, it was waiting at the end of your resistance. And now, here you are, still breathing, still growing, still sacred. Letting go is not the end of the path. It is the moment you step onto it without dragging the past behind you. It is the final act of faith, a deep bow to the mystery, a gentle opening of the heart, a quiet declaration that says, I no longer need to fight life to feel free. I choose to live not from fear, but from peace. I choose to walk not with burden, but with trust. I choose to let go because I've lost, but because I'm finally ready to be free. And in that moment, freedom isn't something you chase anymore. It is something you remember, because it was always yours. Letting go is the beginning of living without resistance, fully, gently, and without fear. There is a quiet yet persistent tension that most people carry inside them. It shows up in their shoulders, in their breath, in the way their thoughts move too fast, and their hearts rarely feel safe. It's not always from pain or trauma, though it often begins there. This tension is more subtle, more constant. It is the result of fighting life without even realizing it, of resisting reality moment by moment, of expecting each situation, each person, each outcome to bend to your mind's idea of how things should be. This resistance doesn't always feel loud. Sometimes it feels like control, like striving, like overthinking, like planning too far ahead, like blaming when things go wrong. But beneath it all is the same root, the inability to simply be with what is. And so Buddhism teaches us a sacred truth, often missed in the rush of modern life. Letting go is not just about releasing the past. It is about ending your war with the present. It is about finally beginning to live without resistance. You see, we are taught from an early age that life must be shaped, managed, improved. We are told to dream big, make plans, reach goals. And while there is wisdom in growth, there is danger in the belief that life must always match your expectations in order for you to feel peace. This belief creates a subtle war with reality. When people disappoint you, you resist. When situations change, you panic. When your plans fall apart, you suffer not because life is cruel, but because you are so deeply attached to how you thought it should unfold. And as long as you live this way, you will always be chasing peace, but never truly finding it. Letting go in this sense is not about doing nothing. It is about doing everything without inner resistance, without tension, without constantly needing life to justify itself to you. It is the difference between swimming against the current and learning to float. It is the shift from needing everything to change to realizing you can change the way you meet everything. And in that shift, something incredible happens. Your suffering begins to dissolve, not because everything outside becomes perfect, but because your inner world finally stops fighting. When you stop resisting the moment, you begin to actually experience it. The sounds around you become music instead of noise. The faces you see become alive instead of distractions. The breath in your body becomes a sacred rhythm instead of something taken for granted. You begin to taste your food, feel the texture of the air, hear your own thoughts with compassion instead of judgment. This is not spiritual theory. This is the real, embodied result of letting go not just once, but again and again, moment by moment, breath by breath. But resistance is not only mental, it's emotional too. We resist grief by numbing it. We resist anger by denying it. We resist fear by pretending to be strong. We resist sadness by distracting ourselves with noise. But emotions, like everything else in life, are meant to be felt, not feared. They are waves, not prisons. When we resist them, they get stuck. They form blocks, patterns, knots in the body and mind. But when we let go and allow them to move, they pass through. They teach, they purify, they soften us. And in their wake, they leave a kind of clarity that no amount of avoidance can ever give. Letting go of resistance also means allowing others to be who they are, even if it hurts. It means releasing the need to change people, to fix their paths, to control their decisions. This doesn't mean you don't care. It means you recognize that love is not control, that everyone is walking their own journey, that their healing may not look like yours, that their timing is not your responsibility. And when you let go of the need to manage others, your love becomes cleaner, softer, more real. You begin to love without needing, without pushing, without expectations dressed up as care. In Buddhism, the path to enlightenment is not about adding more. It is about subtracting what no longer serves, letting go of illusion, letting go of craving, letting go of aversion, letting go of the belief that happiness lies somewhere else. This is how we stop resisting life, by understanding that nothing is inherently wrong with the present moment, except the story we've placed on top of it. When that story is released, even for a second, what's left is presence, and in presence there is peace, not because life is perfect, but because your relationship with life is no longer rooted in fear. To live without resistance is not to escape difficulty. It is to face difficulty with softness. It is to walk into chaos with a steady breath. It is to trust that even when things fall apart, something inside you remains whole. This trust cannot be taught. It must be experienced. It must be remembered. And it is remembered only through the sacred act of letting go, not of your dreams, but of your fear, not of your passion, but of your pressure, not of your power, but of your need to control. And when you live this way, life begins to unfold differently. Not because it becomes easier, but because you are no longer standing in your own way. Your energy begins to move. Your intuition sharpens. Your joy returns not as a spike, but as a gentle hum in the background of your days. You begin to move not from effort, but from alignment. You begin to speak not to prove, but to connect. You begin to wake each morning not in dread, but in quiet anticipation of what peace may arrive if you simply stay open. Letting go of resistance is the deepest form of surrender. It says, I will stop fighting life and begin flowing with it. I will stop needing to control and start trusting that what is meant for me cannot miss me. It is the decision to stop waiting for the perfect moment and to start living this one. It is the shift from surviving to being, from grasping to receiving, from fear to faith. So if you are tired of trying so hard, if you are weary from fighting what life keeps placing in front of you, if you are craving something lighter, something more true, begin here, in this breath, this moment. Let go not of life, but of your resistance to it. And in that letting go, discover the truth that has been waiting all along. You were never meant to fight life. You were meant to move with it. You were meant to flow. You were meant to live not from control, but from freedom. Not from fear, but from peace. And that peace begins the moment you finally let go. The moment you let go, life becomes simple because you finally stop fighting reality. There is a heaviness we carry that has nothing to do with the weight of the world and everything to do with our resistance to it. A tension in the body, a pressure in the mind, a dull ache in the heart that never quite goes away. We often mistake it for stress, fatigue, or even depression. But beneath all of it, there's something simpler, more subtly constant struggle with what is, with the things we wish were different, with the people we wish would change, with the stories we replay, hoping for a better ending. We are not suffering because of life itself. We are suffering because we keep wrestling with the truth of life. And that's why letting go is not just emotional healing, it is spiritual freedom. It's the moment we stop fighting reality. And when that moment comes, life becomes simple again, not easier, but clearer. Not lighter because everything changes, but lighter because we stop trying to change what was never ours to control. In Buddhist teaching, the cause of our suffering is not pain itself, it is our aversion to pain. It is our attachment to pleasure. It is our unwillingness to allow life to be life. This resistance shows up in small moments. The anger when someone disappoints us, the anxiety when things don't go as planned, the sadness when something ends, the tightness in the chest when someone moves on. And in those moments, we don't just feel, we cling. We don't just experience, we react. We try to rewrite the moment with our expectations. We try to mold it to fit our idea of how it should have been. And every time we do, we create suffering. But letting go is the sacred act of ending that war, of stopping the endless push and pull, of choosing peace over control, of saying, maybe life doesn't have to go my way in order to be meaningful. Maybe the present moment is already complete, even if it's not comfortable. Maybe I don't have to carry the weight of my judgments, my expectations, my regrets anymore. And when you let go, truly let go, it's like a door inside you opens and all that heaviness begins to melt. Not because the world changed, but because your resistance did. Letting go doesn't mean that you stop caring. It doesn't mean you give up. It means you stop adding layers of unnecessary pain on top of what is already difficult. It means you stop demanding that life be something it is not. It means you stop resisting change, endings, and imperfections. It means you finally learn to live with openness instead of grasping. To move through life like water fluid, responsive, free. Imagine walking through a beautiful forest. The path is uneven, there are stones, there is mud, there are sudden turns and hidden roots. You can walk rigidly, trying to force the ground to flatten beneath your feet. You can curse the stones, blame the trees, panic at every twist. Or you can walk with acceptance. You can soften your steps. You can breathe into each moment and say, this is part of the journey. The forest doesn't need to change for you to find peace. Only your relationship with it does. That is how life works. You can spend your entire life wishing things had gone differently. Your childhood, your relationships, your failures, your missed chances. You can realize that peace is not found in rewriting the past. It's found in releasing your grip on the past. And when you do, you create space not only in your mind, but in your spirit. Space for insight, for compassion, for clarity, for presence. Letting go is also how we reconnect with simplicity. We live in a world that thrives on complexity, so many voices, opinions, choices, desires. We are pulled in every direction, trying to be everything, do everything, fix everything. We confuse busyness with purpose. We think that the more we carry, the more valuable we are. But the truth is, your value was never measured by how much you endure, and your peace was never meant to be postponed until life becomes perfect. Letting go is how you simplify your soul, how you return to what matters, how you stop clinging to what drains you and begin honoring what sustains you. You begin to recognize what no longer belongs, not with resentment, but with wisdom. You begin to say no, not out of fear, but out of alignment. You begin to clear emotional clutter the same way you clean a room, letting go of what no longer fits, what you no longer need, what no longer reflects the person you're becoming. And as the clutter clears, you begin to feel something unexpected, relief, a lightness, a stillness you haven't felt in years. Because all that energy you once spent resisting reality, you now use to live it. The present moment stops feeling like a prison. It starts to feel like a sanctuary. This doesn't mean you never feel pain. You still will. But you will meet it differently. You will allow it, breathe through it, learn from it. You will hold it, and then let it go, instead of clinging to it like a badge or a burden. You'll stop identifying with every passing emotion. You'll realize that you are not your thoughts, not your past, not your failures. You are the awareness that sees it all and the spaciousness that can let it all pass. Letting go also allows you to finally hear your own truth. When you stop filling your mind with what you think should happen, you begin to hear what your soul is quietly asking for. Simplicity, honesty, presence, real connection. And you realize how much of your life was spent chasing things that never truly fulfilled you. Letting go helps you stop running. It helps you come home. And coming home is not about finding a perfect place or a perfect feeling. It is about finding a quiet sense of belonging within yourself. A trust that says, whatever happens, I'll be okay. I can meet this moment. I don't need to control everything to be at peace. That is the gift of surrender. That is the power of letting go. That is the quiet miracle that happens when you stop fighting reality. So if you are tired of trying, tired of chasing, tired of holding it all together, maybe it's not because you're weak. Maybe it's because you're still resisting what already is. And maybe the most powerful thing you can do today is not fight harder but soften. Open your palms, loosen your grip, trust the unfolding. Say to yourself, I do not need to carry everything. I do not need to force clarity. I do not need to hold on just because I'm afraid. I can let go. I can be here. And that is enough. Because when you stop fighting reality, life doesn't become perfect. It becomes possible. And in that space, something sacred awakens. A peace you forgot you were allowed to feel. A simplicity that feels like grace. A love that never needed to be earned, only remembered. The freedom you're searching for begins the moment you accept that nothing is meant to stay. We spend so much of our lives trying to hold on. We hold on to people, places, identities, hopes, beliefs, feelings, and moments, not because we are selfish, but because we are afraid. Afraid that if we let go, we'll fall apart. afraid that if we don't preserve everything, we'll be left with nothing. But Buddhism, in its soft, unwavering truth, reminds us again and again, Anicca, everything is impermanent. All things, no matter how beautiful, must eventually pass. And while this truth might feel painful to hear, it is not cruel, it is a path to liberation. Because once you stop expecting permanence from what was never meant to stay, you begin to taste a freedom unlike anything you've ever known. Let's be honest, we've all had moments we wanted to last forever. A person who made us feel seen, a version of ourselves we were proud of, a chapter of life that felt safe, full of meaning. We cling to these things not just because we love them, but because they give us a sense of control in a world that feels constantly in motion. And yet, the more we try to freeze time, the more it slips through our fingers. The more we try to grasp a feeling, the more it fades. The more we attach our identity to something external, the more lost we feel when it inevitably changes. The truth is, most of our suffering comes not from change itself, but from our refusal to accept it. We want people to stay the same, even though they are growing. We want relationships to remain how they began, even though every bond evolves. We want to feel only joy, forgetting that sorrow has its own wisdom to offer. We want to live in a world that does not shift, decay, end, but that world only exists in imagination. The real world moves like the wind, like a river, like the seasons. Everything is in flux. And trying to fight that is like trying to trap the sky in a jar. It cannot be done. The sky was never meant to be held. It was meant to be witnessed, appreciated, and released. The moment you begin to accept this truly, gently accept this, you begin to breathe in a new way. You begin to soften toward life, instead of bracing against it. You stop asking permanence from impermanent things. You stop demanding certainty from people who are still figuring themselves out. You stop expecting your life to remain one way when it was always meant to unfold in stages. This is not giving up. It is waking up. Waking up from the illusion that stability lies in things outside of you. Waking up to the truth that peace comes not from holding on, but from flowing with the moment as it comes. There is something profoundly beautiful about realizing you don't have to grip everything so tightly anymore, that you can let a moment pass without trying to own it, that you can love someone deeply and still let them change, even let them go without making their departure a tragedy, that you can let your past selves fade away without guilt, because each version of you was simply a chapter, not the whole book. Letting go does not mean you lose meaning. It means you stop forcing meaning onto things that have already served their purpose. This mindset, this ability to release without bitterness is not indifference. It is not coldness. It is compassion in its highest form. Because you begin to honor life, not as something to be controlled, but as something to be experienced with humility. You begin to see your experiences as teachers, not possessions. You stop asking, how do I make this last forever? And start asking, what is this here to teach me before it moves on? In this way, you become both student and witness of the present moment. You live fully, not because you've held on to everything, but because you've learned to appreciate everything while it's here. This does not mean letting go won't hurt. It often does. The ache of endings is real. The sting of loss, of uncertainty, of saying goodbye is human. But when you accept that everything is temporary, that pain too becomes less sharp. Because you see it for what it is, a wave, not a wall. It will rise, it will pass. And on the other side, there will be space for something new, something unknown, something perhaps even more aligned with who you are becoming. There is a quiet joy that emerges from this way of living, a lightness, a sense of openness. You stop moving through life with clenched fists and start walking with open hands. You let people show up as they are. You let days pass without trying to control their outcome. You let your emotions rise and fall without trying to suppress or chase them. You allow yourself to be a part of life's flow instead of constantly fighting the current. And in that flow, you find something rare: peace without conditions. You may lose things, you may lose people, you may even lose versions of yourself, but you will not lose your center, because your peace no longer lives in the external. It lives in your ability to be present, to be soft, to let life move through you without resistance. This is the freedom the Buddha spoke of. Not the freedom to control everything, but the freedom to no longer need to. The freedom to sit in silence and know that nothing is missing. The freedom to love without clinging. The freedom to experience joy without fearing its end. The freedom to let go because you have no choice, but because you finally understand that in release there is wholeness. So if you are standing at the edge of an ending, scared to let go, breathe. Remember this: the river does not mourn the mountains it leaves behind. It flows forward, wide and open, into the unknown. And in doing so, it becomes more than it ever was. The same is true for you. You are not meant to stay in one place forever. You are meant to move, to evolve, to keep becoming. And the moment you accept that nothing is meant to stay is the same moment you realize you are finally free. When you let go, you begin to see life as it truly is, not as you wish it to be. So much of what we call suffering isn't caused by life itself, but by the difference between reality and the story we tell ourselves about how reality should be. We suffer not only because things happen, but because we had secretly hoped they wouldn't. We suffer when people don't love us the way we imagined they would, when the path we planned takes an unexpected turn, when the timing doesn't match our schedule, when we cling to the version of life that exists only in our imagination and try to force it into the shape of the real world, only to find that it never quite fits. It is in that tension, the space between what is and what we wish, was that a quiet war begins inside us. And the only way to end that war is to let go of the illusion and finally see life for what it truly is. This is not a passive act. It takes deep courage to release your grip on your fantasies and face the present moment without filters, without resistance, without pretense. In Buddhism, this practice is not weakness, it is the highest form of wisdom. Because when you see clearly, without the fog of attachment and the blur of expectation, you finally meet life as it actually is, unfiltered, raw, alive, sacred. And in that clarity, suffering begins to fade. We've all imagined a life that never came to be, a version of ourselves we hope to grow into, a love that would heal all wounds, a career that would fulfill our soul, a family that would never break apart. We told ourselves, quietly or loudly, this is how things are supposed to go. And when they didn't, we didn't just grieve what happened, we grieved the dream, the one we carried secretly for years, the one we never told anyone we were holding so tightly. And that grief is real. It deserves compassion, but it also deserves release, because no matter how beautiful the story in your mind was, you're living in a different story now. One that may be quieter, more uncertain, more complicated, but also one that is deeply alive, present, and still full of possibilities. Holding on to the story of how things should have gone blinds you to how they actually are. And how they are may not be perfect, but they are real. And in that reality, you can begin again. You can find something truer than perfection, peace. To let go is to stop living in reaction to the past and stop waiting for a fantasy future. It is to drop the lens of disappointment and pick up the lens of presence. To say, I see what is in front of me, what I wanted it to be, not what I feared it would be, but what it truly is. That act of seeing clearly is what the Buddha called right view on, of the first steps on the Eightfold Path. It is the beginning of freedom. Because you cannot move freely through a world, you are constantly trying to reshape into something it is not. You must first accept it. Only then can you live with harmony. When you let go of what you thought life owed you, you begin to appreciate what life has quietly been offering all along. Maybe the love you hoped for didn't come in the form you imagined, but there is still love, in the small kindness of a friend, in the warmth of the sun on your skin, in the silence of a peaceful morning. Maybe the career didn't go as planned, but in its place came wisdom, patience, new doors, and a strength you didn't know you had. Maybe the path you dreamed of closed, but another opened, slower, more winding, yet more aligned with your soul. When your hands are no longer closed around one idea of happiness, they are open to the infinite forms joy can take. Letting go also helps you see people for who they truly are not, for who you need them to be. We often place invisible demands on the people we love, expecting them to complete us, fix us, heal us, or behave in ways that match our emotional blueprints. But people are not characters in our mental scripts. They are living beings on their own paths, full of their own pain, confusion, growth, and longing. When you release your expectations of them, you begin to relate with truth. You can stop resenting them for not fitting your mold and start appreciating them for who they honestly are, even if that means walking away with love instead of staying with bitterness. This clarity applies to yourself too. Letting go means looking at who you've become, who you meant to become, not who others told you to be, but who you are right now. It means no longer punishing yourself for not being your ideal self. It means dropping the constant self-criticism, the exhausting perfectionism, the "I should be farther by now" story. You are here. You are doing your best. You have survived everything that tried to break you, and you are still growing. That is not failure. That is sacred resilience. In Buddhist teaching, this shift from illusion to reality is not cold or detached. It is infused with compassion. You don't let go out of apathy. You let go because holding on hurts more. You don't accept reality out of weakness. You accept it because it is the only place where love, healing, and presence can take root. You don't abandon dreams. You refine them. You stop chasing shadows and start planting seeds in real soil. The beauty of this practice is that it brings you home. Home to your breath. Home to your body. Home to this moment, just as it is. The sounds around you, the ground beneath you, the heartbeat within you. All of it becomes enough not because it is spectacular, but because it is real. You no longer need fantasy to feel peace. You no longer need illusion to feel alive. The truth becomes your sanctuary. So if you are holding tightly to how things should have been, take a breath, close your eyes. Ask yourself gently, what part of this story can I finally release? Not because it didn't matter, but because it already served its purpose. Because the time has come to step fully into what is. Because the reality of this moment imperfect, ordinary, maybe even painful, is still sacred. Still full of truth. Still a place where something beautiful can begin. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply being invited to stop waiting for a better version of life and to start living the one that's right in front of you. Let go of the illusion. See what's here. And watch how peace arrives not with thunder, but with a whisper. Not with applause, but with stillness. Not with promises, but with presence. And in that presence, you'll find everything you were chasing. You cannot enter the present while dragging the past behind you. There is a strange kind of loyalty many of us carry not toward people, but toward pain. A silent pact we make with the past, to keep revisiting it, nursing it, repeating it, as if to forget it would be betrayal. We replay conversations in our minds, relive regrets, carry guilt like a sacred stone in our chest. We keep going back, not because we enjoy the suffering, but because the past feels familiar, known. It may be heavy, but at least we know its weight. The future is uncertain. The present asks for surrender. But the past we've memorized. So we stay there. We become archaeologists of our own sorrow, digging up what hurt us over and over again, not realizing that every time we return to the past, we abandon the only place we are truly alive, the present moment. Buddhism speaks to this gently but firmly. Clinging to the past is like trying to walk forward with a rope tied around your waist, anchored to a boulder. You may move, but you'll move in circles. You'll call it progress, but inside you'll feel stuck. The weight of what happened will distort how you see what's happening now. The pain from old wounds will bleed into new opportunities. You'll carry old stories into fresh beginnings, and no matter how much beauty appears in front of you, you'll barely notice it because your gaze is still turned backwards. To live fully, you must let go of what no longer lives. Not because it didn't matter, but because it already served its time. The people who left, the versions of yourself that cracked, the decisions that brought you regret, the words you wish you never said, the love that didn't last, the betrayal that shook your trust. These are not chapters to erase, but they are chapters to close. You cannot keep reading the same page and expect the story to move forward. Letting go of the past doesn't mean forgetting it. It means no longer letting it define your every step. It means no longer filtering today's experiences through yesterday's pain. It means allowing today to speak in its own voice through the echo of yesterday's storm. Because the truth is, the past can no longer hurt you unless you keep bringing it into the present and asking it to. Sometimes we hold on to the past because we're still waiting for it to change, still waiting for the apology that never came, still hoping for an explanation, still believing that if we hold on tightly enough, maybe it will all make sense. But healing does not come from waiting, it comes from deciding. Deciding to no longer let someone else's silence define your peace. Deciding to no longer let your old mistakes become your identity. Deciding that you deserve to live fully, not just exist as a shadow of what could have been. There is a line in Buddhist teaching that says, "You can't pour new tea into a cup that is already full." And yet so many of us come to the present with cups full of yesterday, full of pain, blame, shame, longing. We expect today to be sweet while we're still sipping the bitterness of what went wrong. But to receive what life is trying to offer you now, you must first empty the cup. You must sit down with your past self, not to judge them, but to thank them. Thank them for surviving, for getting you here. And then, gently, tell them they can rest now. They don't need to keep repeating the same lesson. You've heard it. You've learned. Now it's time to move forward. Letting go is an act of love, not just for others, but for yourself. It is the permission you give yourself to finally breathe without the choke of old memories. It is the moment you stop waiting for your past to give you permission to be happy. It is the shift from "why did it happen?" to "what can I do now?" It is the soft, sacred decision to stop bleeding into days that didn't hurt you and to show up fully for the ones that are still waiting. You may be tempted to revisit your past for answers, but most of what you're looking for isn't there. Closure doesn't live in the old room. It lives in your willingness to stop knocking on the same door and to turn toward the open space in front of you. The past has already happened. Its purpose is not to trap you, it's to teach you. And once it has taught you, it's time to bow to it and let it go. Letting go of the past also means releasing the version of yourself who lived there, the one who made mistakes, the one who was afraid, the one who didn't know better. You are not obligated to be who you were yesterday. That version of you was doing the best they could with the awareness they had. Forgive them. honor them, but don't confuse their fear with your present strength. You have grown, and the life you want now does not belong to the hands that still cling to guilt. In meditation, we return again and again to the present moment, not because the past is evil or the future unimportant, but because this breath, this heartbeat, this step is where your power lives. This is the only place where change can be made, where peace can be felt, where love can be expressed. The past is a river that has already flowed by. You can remember it, you can learn from it, but you cannot live in it. And the more time you spend swimming upstream, the more tired your soul becomes. So pause, breathe, ask yourself, what weight from yesterday am I still carrying? What memory have I let sit too long in the sacred space of today? And then, gently, begin to loosen your grip. Not all at once, not with force, but slowly, with love. Imagine placing that memory, that pain, that version of yourself on a leaf, and setting it down into the stream. Let it float. Watch it go. Feel your chest rise a little easier. Feel the moment expand. You are not meant to drag your history behind you like chains. You are meant to walk forward light, awake, present. And the moment you finally let the past stay in the past, that is the moment you begin to live. Freedom is not in controlling life. It's in releasing the illusion that you ever could. We spend so much of our lives trying to control things. We make plans, we set goals, we obsess over outcomes. We try to control how others see us, how relationships unfold, how the future will treat us. We try to shape our lives like clay, molding it with effort, anxiety, and fear. But beneath all of this striving lies a deeper truth we resist. We are not in control of most things in life. We never were, and it is in resisting this truth that we create our own suffering. The Buddha did not teach us to control life. He taught us to observe it, to understand it, to live in harmony with its nature, not in conflict with it. And the nature of life is this. It flows, it changes, it slips through your fingers like water. It cannot be frozen into perfection. It cannot be tamed by fear. It cannot be micromanaged into always doing what you want. Life is wild. Life is sacred. Life is uncertain. And that uncertainty, though it terrifies the ego, is the very thing that allows space for transformation, for beauty, for freedom. When we cling to control, we harden ourselves. We become tense. We become suspicious of change, fearful of uncertainty, resistant to what is. And in doing so, we cut ourselves off from the miracle of the moment. Control is a prison we build to feel safe, but the irony is it never truly protects us. It only isolates us. It only makes us more anxious, more reactive, more frustrated when life inevitably doesn't follow our script. Think about how much energy is wasted trying to force people to act how we expect, trying to prevent outcomes we fear, trying to script every part of our future as if we could protect ourselves from disappointment. That's not peace. That's performance. That's fear disguised as planning. And every time things don't go according to our expectations, we collapse not because life failed, but because we believed it was supposed to obey us. But life is not here to obey. It is here to unfold. And when we finally see this, we don't give up, we wake up. We stop trying to control the ocean and start learning how to swim in it. We stop trying to predict the storm and start learning how to be present in the rain. We realize that peace doesn't come from mastering life's chaos, it comes from releasing the illusion that it's supposed to be orderly in the first place. This surrender is not weakness, it is power, true power. The kind that can stand calmly in the middle of uncertainty and say, I don't know what's coming, but I trust myself to meet it. The kind of power that allows you to move through life without clinging to outcomes. That lets you give your best without needing a guarantee. That opens your heart to love, knowing it might hurt. That allows you to grieve, to grow, to begin again and again and again. Buddhist practice invites us to sit with impermanence, not as a threat, but as a teacher. Every breath we take is a reminder that nothing is held forever. The inhale is not ours to keep. The exhale is not ours to avoid. In each moment, we are letting go, and in that letting go, we make space for what is real. Control is about fear. Surrender is about trust. Not trust that everything will go your way, but trust that you will be okay, even if it doesn't. This trust begins within. When you stop trying to control the external world, you start learning how to master the inner one. Your reactions, your breath, your presence. That is where your real power lives, not in controlling life, but in mastering how you meet it. And when your inner world is steady, the chaos outside loses its grip on you. Letting go of control doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop pretending you are the architect of every detail. It means you show up fully, you act with intention, and then you release. You let the moment be what it is. You let others be who they are. You let life unfold without squeezing it for certainty. And in that release, something beautiful happens. You find peace. A peace that isn't based on how well things go, but on how deeply you've accepted that you don't need to grip life to live it well. The tightness begins to loosen. The fear begins to soften. The need to know what's next loses its urgency, and you begin to breathe, not because everything is perfect, but because you've stopped needing it to be. You've stopped trying to mold life into a shape. You've started to dance with it. You no longer panic when plans change. You no longer spiral when people disappoint you. You no longer crumble when the future is uncertain. Because now you understand. You were never in control to begin with. You were only learning how to meet each moment with presence instead of panic, with breath instead of resistance, with surrender instead of fear. So pause now and ask yourself gently, what am I gripping so tightly that it's robbing me of peace? Is it the need to control how others see you? The need for your plan to unfold a certain way? The belief that happiness can only come from a specific outcome? Now ask yourself, what would happen if I released just one finger from that grip? What if I softened a little, trusted a little, breathed a little deeper? Freedom is not found in knowing how it will all turn out. It's found in realizing that you don't have to know to feel peace, that you can still walk forward even with trembling legs, that you can still love life even when it surprises you, that you can still trust yourself even when the path is invisible. So today, release the illusion of control and step into the sacred space where life is not managed but experienced, where peace is not earned but allowed, where you no longer carry the weight of trying to make everything perfect, because you finally know you are free the moment you let go, waking up from the illusion that you are meant to control, own, or hold on to every moment, every feeling, every person, waking up from the dream that things must stay the same to bring you peace, waking up from the belief that the past must be carried like a burden or that the future must be gripped with anxious hands. Real life begins the moment you open your palms and release what was never yours to hold forever. You see, the tree does not cling to its leaves in autumn, the river does not freeze its waters in place, the sky does not trap a single cloud, and you are part of this same living rhythm. You were not born to resist change. You were born to move through it, to flow, to shed, to open, and in that flow there is a soft kind of power, the kind that doesn't need to fight to be strong, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself to be worthy, the kind that simply is, like the wind, like light, like silence. Letting go is not one big moment, it's 1,000 small choices you make every day. Choosing presence over rumination, choosing trust over fear, choosing to meet life with open hands, even after it has hurt you. choosing to forgive or not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be free. Choosing to stop revisiting the wounds just to remind yourself they're still there. Choosing to honor your pain, but not become a prisoner to it. These are not easy choices. They are courageous ones. There will be days when you forget. Days when the past feels too loud. When the need for control rises like a wave. When your grip tightens around something you swore you had already released. And that's okay. This path is not about being perfect, it's about being gentle with yourself, about noticing when you've clenched, and choosing again and again to let go. Every time you soften, you return to your true self. Every time you release, you remember your own vastness. And perhaps this is the deepest lesson of all. You are not small. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not lost. You are unfolding, just like the lotus. Even if right now you feel buried in mud, know this. The lotus only blooms because of the mud, not in spite of it, but because of it. Your struggle is not separate from your peace, it is the soil it will grow from. So when you feel the ache of change, breathe. When you feel the fear of uncertainty, pause. When you feel the weight of the past, exhale. And remember, life is not asking you to carry everything. Life is asking you to return to yourself, to come back to the present, to sit in stillness, to trust the unfolding, to let go, not to lose, but to finally begin. Because real life, the kind that is soft and deep and alive, does not begin when you get everything right. It begins when you stop trying to hold it all together. It begins when you stop forcing the path to look a certain way. It begins the moment you finally let go. And in that moment, you won't feel emptiness. You'll feel peace. You'll feel breath. You'll feel space. You'll feel free. Welcome back. This is where your life begins.